Chapter 1140. Gu Qingshan's gaze scanned through them. They were all standing still, but none of them dared to step forward. Gu Qingshan was surrounded by 3 afterimages, giving off an indescribable sense of mystery. This was the power granted by the Omni Stone. Power of the Void, Shadow Strike. In truth, these 3 afterimages didn't have much attacking power. But just now, Gu Qingshan had killed one of them with a single strike, so who would dare to try it? Gu Qingshan didn't pay any attention to these people and focused on the wound on Su Share's arm. His eyebrows furrowed. The bleeding still hasn't stopped. Now that he couldn't use any spells, this level of injury was already quite troublesome to deal with. Su Share was still smiling. Just now, I felt that your demeanor and aura were a bit familiar, so I was a bit confused, but it really was you seeing how excited she was. Gu Qingshan couldn't help but ask, "Your arm is still bleeding. Doesn't it hurt?" Su Share was a bit shocked. Then her eyes filled with tears as she muttered in a low voice, "It really does hurt." Gu Qingshan was speechless. He recalled something and suddenly asked, "Super space-time equipment. You came from impartial goddess research and creation, so you must have the corresponding healing ability, right?" A mechanical electronic voice answered, "I am a scientific life form. I have my own soul and consciousness, and I was also stripped of all my abilities just now." For some reason, Gu Qingshan could sense a sense of dejection in the other party's voice. "Then what kind of ability did you leave behind?" Gu Qingshan asked. "A useless ability. In short, it can't save her," the electronic voice answered stiffly. Since Gu Qingshan didn't want to ask anymore, he didn't ask. He quickly pressed on Su Share's upper arm, chest, and a few acupoints on her back. While the bleeding had stopped, he used the Earth Sword to cut off his own clothes and bandage Su Share's arm. Although he had lost all his powers, he had fought for 2 lives, so as a normal person, he still remembered the basics of how to take care of wounds. He was wearing the close-fitting clothes of the cultivation world. The clothes were not much, but they had a little bit of magic power to clean and isolate dust. This kind of technique was perfect for bandaging wounds. "Bear with it for a bit. I'll think of a way to cure you later," Gu Qingshan said. "It's okay." Su Share leaned her head on his shoulder and said with a smile, "I can't bear to die." Everyone looked on in bewilderment. What was going on? The 2 of them didn't know each other at first. However, the moment the man went up, the woman became obedient. Looking at the 3 shadows behind Gu Qingshan, who were on high alert, many of them retreated. More and more people chose to leave. Rather than guarding a card that's hard to obtain, it's better to hurry and explore the secret passage. He might even be able to obtain a real treasure. Gu Qingshan had already whispered, "Behind you." Su Share immediately hid behind him. Those people rushed over and were about to run into the passageway. Gu Qingshan abruptly moved forward and swung her sword. As soon as they showed malicious expressions, the sword had already slashed through their bodies. 1 strike. Still 1 strike. Clang. Clang. The weapons they just took out fell to the ground. Sure enough, they were about to attack, but they died before they could do anything. Someone angrily shouted, "How dare you? You dare kill our people." Gu Qingshan flicked the blood off her sword, looked at the other party, and muttered, "So what if I killed them? If you want to die, come at me." His body surged with a primordial aura of battle intent. After practicing the Azura royal family's basic swordsmanship, the Azura king's swordsmanship knowledge, the Azura deific king's swordsmanship techniques, as well as the Raha's eclipse of sun and moon, Gu Qingshan now had a bit more of an Azura's fighting spirit. His swordsmanship had already surpassed Solitary Strike realm, already on the path towards Sword Deity realm. The man opened his mouth, then closed it again. Everyone was shocked. This person is truly terrifying. Killing several people with a single strike, his swordsmanship had already surpassed the limit of power. In a situation where everyone only had a single skill left, this person didn't need any to become a killing machine. Compared to his swordsmanship, what was even more terrifying was his ability to see through everything. Those people were clearly running for their lives, but he was able to determine their true intentions, then took the initiative to kill them before they could attack. Gu Shan protected Su Cher and continued to retreat. At this point, a hoarse voice came from the secret passage, speaking in the language of the old gods. The dusty land is not to be violated. Those who violate it will only end up with death. A gigantic figure slithered out from the secret passage. A snake's body, a human's head, scales all over his body, for claws and boundless flames. A never-before-seen monster. Gu Shan felt even more uneasy. Eternal void. He muttered in a low voice. Invisible ripples began to appear from the void of space. As these ripples descended, they silently attached themselves to the surface of the Earth Sword. The Void Slash had been activated. A few moments later, the monster's expression became cruel as he chanted. The way forward has become a mystery. As soon as the incantation was uttered, a loud rumbling sound came from behind them. Everyone couldn't help but turn around. The secret passage they came from had already disappeared. The walls were completely smooth. Other than the plaza, there was no other path of retreat. The monster smirked and licked his lips with his long tongue. Foolish food, since you have nowhere to retreat, then all of you shall die here. Boom! Flames soared from its body and instantly flew towards everyone. Chapter 1141. Flames erupted from the monster's body, instantly engulfing the entire area. Those who were too close to it were caught off guard and caught on fire before they could do anything. Seeing that, the snake-bodied, human-headed monster cruelly smirked. Death is a necessary method to dispose of food, the monster muttered in a low voice. In a split second, the flames on those people's bodies spread all over their bodies, burning them to ashes, leaving nothing but a mass of flames that howled in pain. You could faintly see that there were souls trapped inside the flames. The monster opened its mouth and sucked the flames back into its mouth, swallowing them all. Right after it activated its shield, 7 to 8 people were already killed and eaten by the monster. Those who were a bit further away quickly came up with a countermeasure. "All of you get behind me," someone shouted. A mirror-like ice shield appeared in front of him to stop the flames. Those who were hiding behind him were spared. Someone took out a black gauntlet, put it on, and grabbed the flames. The intense flames were completely absorbed by the gauntlet. Everyone used their thaumaturgies to deal with the flames. On the other side, from the very beginning, Gu Shan had already pulled Su Cher back, so when the monster appeared, the two of them were already behind everyone else. They were the two people who were the furthest away from the attack. As the flames appeared, they were mostly blocked by the people of the various forces on the square. Only a few scattered flames managed to travel across the square towards the two of them. Gu Shan drew the Earth Sword, activated a Void Blade, and lightly slashed downwards. The flames split apart, brushing past Gu Shan's body as they scattered to the sides. Shan, look, Su Cher was hiding behind him and silently reminded him. Gu Shan followed where Su Cher was pointing, only to see that the masked cultivators were standing still. The flames were automatically avoiding them. Gu Shan noticed that. These people didn't make any defensive moves, but still managed to avoid the flames. Why is that? Gu Shan's gaze quickly fell onto the hand of one of them, only to see that he was holding a strange-looking badge in his hand. These cultivators from the parallel world were quickly walking towards the monster. As promised, "We're here," the leader said. The monster looked at the token in his hand and nodded. "Not bad. You may enter." The monster slid its huge body aside, creating a gap for them to pass through. The cultivators walked towards the crack. The monster's eyes flickered as it looked at the other people in the square and asked, "Are there any of your people?" A cultivator said nonchalantly, "No more, they're all your food." After that, they brushed past the monster and entered the secret passage. The monster twisted its body and slid towards the square. "It's all food." Its gaze swept across the entire square, saliva dripping from the corner of its mouth. Gu Shan frowned. Those people from the parallel world were actually in contact with the monsters in the secret passage. Wasn't this place sealed by Reneedle's curse for 100 million years? Could it be that in the last few years when the curse was about to end, there were fewer and fewer chaos-absorbing demons, so they had a way to contact the monsters in here? As he was thinking, the monster began to move. It suddenly opened its mouth and sprayed a sticky liquid all over the square. This time, everyone was a lot more cautious and quickly moved away. Who would have thought? This liquid seemed to be sentient and specifically tried to crawl into a person's orifices. Those who were hit quickly fell to the ground, turned into thick blood, and were sucked into the monster's mouth. Delicious now. The monster slid its body forward and licked its lips with its long tongue. It then reached its claws behind itself. A figure that had just slipped past it was caught. It was a guy who could make himself invisible. He seemed to have made up his mind to sneak into the secret passage at the back while the monsters were attacking them. But the monster noticed him. Please, dash, as soon as he said that, he was already stuffed into the monster's mouth and devoured. The square went silent. This monster was too vigilant. Who knows how many of its predatory abilities it still hasn't revealed yet. But everyone here had already lost all of their powers and only had a single ability left. How are we going to fight this? At the back of the square, Su Cher lightly patted Gu Qingshan's shoulder. Qingshan, it seems that monster wants to eat us, she whispered. Gu Qingshan replied, It's going to be a tough battle. I'll go, you hide, Su Cher chuckled. Don't look down on me. She leaned against Gu Qingshan's body and drew the crimson card. At this moment, Su Cher couldn't help but recall what Shifu told her when they left Tree's collection world. In truth, if Qingshan and I fight side by side, we'll be a good match. Protect me, Su Cher whispered. She tossed the blood-red card out and shouted, Divine Armament of the Blood Sea, manifest. The blood-red card turned into a blinding light that manifested into a giant sword. As soon as the sword appeared, it had already crossed the entire square and struck the monster's body. Boom! The blood-red sword slammed the monster straight into the ground. Embark, die! The monster roared as it crawled back up. Its head suddenly turned into a gaping maw full of sharp teeth. It looked straight at Su Cher. At this point, the blood-red sword had already scattered into a dim glow and slowly flew back in front of Su Cher. Again, Su Cher shouted. The blood-red glow brightened and manifested again. Gu Qingshan looked at the weapon and couldn't help but ask, Wasn't that a sword just now? How did it turn into a battering ram? Su Cher explained, The myriad spirit demon slaying sword is very useful, but this card of mine can only summon one divine armament at a time. So I've switched it to the ancient dragon slaying hammer. A hammer can also slay dragons? Why not? Its origin is not simple. While they were talking, the black-red metal hammer descended from above and struck the monster's chest. The air around it trembled. The monster was sent flying, crashing into the wall. The dim blood-red glow returned, once again controlled by Su Cher, and turned into a blood-stained battle axe. Seeing this, Gu Qingshan's eyes twitched. No wonder those people were so envious. This card is too powerful. At this point, the others weren't sitting still. Someone loudly called out, Everyone, we need to cooperate and fight. As soon as that was said, quite a few people followed suit. That's right. That monster wants to eat all of us. Wouldn't we be fools if we don't cooperate at a time like this? That's right. Everyone attack. Gu Qingshan heard a familiar voice. Following the voice, he saw that the other party had taken off his hood to reveal his dignified appearance. Haze Den, the Sky Haze Empire's king. The card user that I met during the Battle of Huang Quan. The one who called for everyone to attack together was him. Strange, why is he here as well? Gu Qingshan muttered to himself. At this point, Haze Den had already acted. He tossed out a card that was fully embedded with gems. Bam! White fog exploded. Haze Den formed a summoning seal with both hands and quickly shouted, 1 fighter, 2 mages, 3 riders for archers, 5 shields, boom, 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 boom. Figures appeared one after another from within the exploding summoning fog. A total of 15 heroic spirits wearing exquisite armor and wielding shields and weapons. Haze Den's gaze turned cold. A bug that's neither human nor ghost dares to stop this king? Die. He made an attacking gesture. Chapter 1142. Following Haze Den's gesture, the 15 heroic spirits began to move. Shield bearers in front, warriors and knights in the middle, mages at the back, archers on both sides. A perfect offensive formation. The heroic spirits charged at the monster. All my subordinates who love and care for me, come and help me. Someone shouted from the other side of the plaza. Everyone turned to see that it was a jet-black devil with a pair of horns on its head. As it called out, the evil creatures around it all placed their hands on its body. A few moments later, all the evil creatures were absorbed into its body. These evil creatures then combined to form a giant devil engulfed in the flames of purgatory. The giant devil stepped forward and charged at the monster in front of the secret passage. The snake-bodied, human-headed monster mocked. With just you lot you want to boom. A blood-red axe descended from above, pierced through its long body, and pinned it to the ground. Arg, it's you again. I'm going to kill you. Put your body and soul into my mouth and chew on it 1,000,000 times. The monster glared at Su Cher and began to struggle, trying to escape from the blood-red axe. Su Cher hurriedly retreated behind Gu Qingshan. Hearing the monster's clamoring, Gu Qingshan scowled. At this point, the heroic spirits that Haze Din summoned arrived in front of the monster. They were all experienced fighters, so as soon as they saw the situation, they split up and used their weapons to pin the monster's long body to the ground. Seeing that, everyone unleashed their strongest attacks. At once, all sorts of spells were unleashed on the monster, causing it to scream in pain. The giant devil slowly approached. It pinned the monster down with one hand and clenched its fist with the other, shouting as it hammered. Keep twisting. Do you really think you're that good at twisting? Speaking of twisting, I know a few body techniques that are more eye-catching than you know that it's time for you to die. You still dare to look at me? I'm telling you, what you're doing is wrong. Even if you reincarnate, you'll still be a target for others to slash. Do you know where you went wrong? Don't know? Then I'll be merciful and tell you. You were too arrogant just now. Shah. A sword phantom flashed. The monster's head fell off. Gu Qingshan sheathed her sword. Sorry, I didn't let you finish. Gu Qingshan apologetically told the giant evil creature. The giant devil was stunned for a few breaths before turning around and walking away. As it walked, demons fell from its body. Eventually, all the demons returned to their original state. Gu Qingshan turned around, took Su Cher's hand, and walked next to Haze Din. Long time no see, Gu Qingshan clasped her fist. Haze Din narrowed his eyes. You are, why don't I see Great Ghost General and Azura King? By the way, my sword can block time stanch, Gu Qingshan said. Haze Din's expression instantly became lively. How'd you change? He took the initiative to ask. It's a long story, but it's mainly for safety, Gu Qingshan said. Haha, I gave you a token to reach my kingdom, but you never came to play. There were too many things to do, so I made a trip there once. But you seem to have moved deeper into the mystic zones. Gu Qingshan once helped Haze Din save his consort. Haze Din had also witnessed Gu Qingshan leading the undead of Huang Quan to fight against the demons, and he even gave the Devil King Warden Rod to Gu Qingshan. The two of them could be considered to have fought side by side, so after chatting for a bit, they seemed to have hit it off. Those masked people just now, have you seen them before? Haze Din asked. They're people from a parallel world, Gu Qingshan replied. Parallel world? This statement caused everyone else to be shocked. They all gathered around, wanting to hear Gu Qingshan's information. Gu Qingshan didn't mind and told them about the alliance between the parallel world and chaos. In truth, a lot of people already knew about this. After all, when the Soul Shrieker gathered the army of chaos, its name shook the entire 900 million world layers. Anyone who paid close attention to it would surely know about it. Haze Din thought for a bit, then spoke with a serious expression. Both you and I have lost our powers, so we can only use one ability at a time. I suggest that we leave together, Gu Qingshan praised. That's exactly what I was thinking. After all, it would be very difficult for one person to face two powerful organizations at once under such circumstances. The Purgatory Archfiend also came forward. Count me in as well. Gu Qingshan and Haze Din both looked at him. The Purgatory Archfiend replied, Both of you are very strong, but I'm not too far behind either. If we stay together, We won't have to worry about those people's ambush. A man clad in flames walked forward and looked at Gu Shan. Count me in as well. The information you just gave me was exactly the same as what I received. I have a bad feeling about this. Gu Shan looked at these people. As the king, Din naturally had a group of people following him. The Purgatory Archfiend also had quite a few evil creatures with him, while the Flame Man also had a large number of subordinates with him. He was the only one who was alone. No, he still had Su Cher. Then let's form an alliance. Does anyone else want to join us? Din loudly asked. Someone from the other groups asked, how do we split the treasure? Treasure? The Flame Man coldly laughed. You're running amok in someone else's territory. You should stick together and survive first. You blind fool, Din replied. If we find the treasure, we can split it among ourselves. Regardless, we need to ensure each other's safety first. The group shook their heads, turned around, and entered the secret passage. Everyone else didn't show any expressions. After all, everyone had their own choices. Din clapped his hands. A card user behind him immediately drew a card. The contract card. How thoughtful. Even the contract was prepared specifically for you, Gu Shan sighed. He received the contract card and checked it. The War God UI displayed the contract card's information. King of Contracts. This is a contract card with a soul, the ancestor of all contracts, the strongest contract of all. If there was a contract card in this world that wouldn't have any problems, this would be it, Gu Shan was assured. Seems like it's a very strict contract card. There shouldn't be any problems. Din replied. It can't be helped. We need to be fully prepared before we go out. In certain situations, we still need to rely on our friends to save us a lot of trouble. Gu Shan gave him the contract card and asked, do you have a healing type card? Din glanced at Su Cher and understood. He spoke to the card user behind him. Heal her. Yes, your majesty. The card user took 2 steps forward, drew a green card, and began to heal Su Cher's wounds. A few moments later, Su Cher's knitted eyebrows slowly relaxed. It doesn't hurt anymore, she told Gu Shan. Gu Shan smiled and sincerely clasped her fist. Thank you, your majesty, Din replied. There's no need to be so formal. Just call me Hayes. When you helped me save my princess, I didn't hold back either. At this point, an electronic voice silently resounded in Gu Shan's ears. Frowny face, Your Excellency, Gu Shan. Su Cher's wounds are about to be fully healed. According to the system's combat data, if she is allowed to follow us, you'll have to spend extra time to take care of her. Furthermore, she doesn't seem to like fighting. In fact, she hates it. If you want to be considerate for her sake, please allow her to rest here. This way, she won't have to worry about her life. Hearing that, Gu Shan walked forward and asked Su Cher, will you be coming with me, or will you be staying here to rest? Su Cher answered without hesitation, of course I'll be coming with you. Gu Shan didn't ask anything else. The electronic voice also didn't resound again, but there seemed to be someone grinding their teeth in the void of space. Everyone, the contract has been prepared. Din held the card in his hand, turned it into a contract scroll, and told everyone. The leaders of the group gathered together. This is one of the strictest contracts we know of. Anyone who violates it will only end up with their soul being destroyed. Everyone read the contents of the contract without any objections. I hope that everyone will be able to work together and survive the rest of the exploration, Din said. He was the first to place his hand on the contract. His information was displayed on the contract. King of the Sky, Hayes Empire, ruler of the Gem Deck, ruler of one of the 5 great kingdoms of the Mystic Zones, Din, hereby signed the contract of alliance. The man covered in flames also placed his hand on the contract. His information was also displayed on the contract. Frowny face, ruler of the Canyon of Flames, heir of the secret art of Flame Fist, master of lava, Gan, hereby signed the contract of alliance. The Purgatory Fiend laughed. So you're all people of status. Su Cher had been silent up to this point, but suddenly cut in. Status isn't important. What's important is strength. These people all held great authority. And Gu Shan had always been wandering the infinite worlds, so she was worried that Gu Shan would be embarrassed due to her status. The Purgatory Fiend shook its head. Only status can show a person's strength. For example, you? Su Cher doubtfully asked. Gu Qingshan hurriedly signaled her with her eyes, but it was already too late. As he expected, the purgatory fiend had already started to explain. Indeed, when I was young, I was a pitiful inferior demon. Because I was too useless, I was pushed down a cliff by other evil creatures and coincidentally fell into a cave where a dying void dragon lived. It passed down all of its secret techniques to me, told me about the great war that happened over 100 million years ago, as well as this place. That was how I was able to become the most powerful evil creature in purgatory in such a short period of time, ruling over the entire purgatory and interacting with numerous devil and devil realms, calling upon the wind and summoning the rain. Status can show a person's experience and true strength, everyone. Gu Qingshan whispered into Su Cher's ear. Chatterbox. Su Cher went silent and didn't reply to the evil creature's words. Seeing everyone staying silent, the purgatory fiend thought that its experience had scared everyone away, so it triumphantly put its hand on the contract. Information about it appeared on the contract. Frowny face, great evil creature of purgatory, Sha Chong, hereby signed the contract of alliance. The entire square went silent. The evil creature called Sha Chong was surprised and couldn't help but exclaim, "What's going on? I've done so many great things. Why don't I have a cool title?" A frenzied aura erupted from its body, but it didn't. Everyone here had their powers sealed away, so it couldn't use its presence either. Chapter 1143. Seeing how Sha Chong couldn't vent its anger and was about to leave, Hayesden hurriedly gave it a way out. Perhaps you were too sentimental and didn't kill the king of purgatory. If you had killed it, you would have gained a new identity. King of purgatory, Sha Chong clapped his hands in realization. And here I was wondering why that guy kept avoiding me. So it was because he didn't want to give up his identity. At this point, desperate screams could be heard from the secret passage. Everyone's expressions changed. Those who left first ran into monsters. Just how many monsters were there in the secret passage? Hurry, Gu Qingshan, Hayesden urged. Gu Qingshan followed the others and quickly placed her hand on the covenant. Only after this covenant was signed would everyone be able to trust their backs to each other and fight together. Very quickly, Gu Qingshan's personal information appeared on the covenant. Frowny-faced dragon slayer of the age of old, mortal enemy of the deity of chaos, devil king of Huang Quan, wielder of heaven and earth, ally of the eternal abyss, archfiend and cherub of condemnation, the man with the best kissing technique in the world, an experienced performer, Gu Qingshan, hereby signed the covenant of alliance. Special note, some of his identities will scare you to death, but they are unrelated to this covenant. This covenant still wants to live for a few more years, so it won't be displayed. Everyone, looking at this long list of titles and explanations, anyone would have to slow down a bit. This guy's growing really fast. Sovereign card, Hayesden silently thought. Who the hell is this person? Are those identities real? Ruler of Flames, Guyan silently thought. How'd he get his hands on all these identities? No, I need to find a chance to discuss with him and see if I can share a few with him. Great Archfiend of Purgatory, Sha Chong silently thought. Everything else is fine, but what's with that world-famous kiss technique? Who taught him that? Su Cher clenched her small fists and silently thought. Looking at the cherub title, Gu Qingshan sighed dejectedly. I need to work harder. I need to hurry and find more inner playing cards to change my condemnation name. Seeing that everyone was stunned, he quickly reminded them, there are more monsters coming from the secret passage. What are you waiting for? At this point, the contract had been established. Rays of holy white light enveloped everyone within it. There was no problem with the contract, and the content of the contract was in line with all the rules of the alliance. Everyone had approved of it. Very well, from now on, everyone prepare to face the enemy together. Hayesden also loudly declared. Purgatory Archfiend Sha Chong waved his hand. All the demons merged into its body. It became huge again. Hayesden loudly ordered his subordinates, while Guyan also began assigning tasks and manpower. For a while, Everything was in perfect order as everyone prepared for the upcoming battle. With the effects of the contract, everyone's teamwork became evident. Su-Cher, your attack is very important. Stand in the middle of everyone. Gu Qing-shan shouted. No one made a sound. In a battle, such a powerful cardmaster had to be protected. Gu Qing-shan continued. I'm a sword cultivator. I'll be the first to face the enemy. Saying so, he drew his swords and stood at the very front of the formation. As he said so, everyone's other thoughts disappeared without a trace. Su-Cher worriedly said, Qing-shan, you need to be careful. I'm fine. Gu Qing-shan gave her a confident smile. Within the darkness of the secret passage, various noises were becoming louder and louder. Screams and screams could be heard one after another, as well as faint cries and screams of pain. These were the noises of the people who entered the secret passage before them. As for the strange noises, it was obvious that they were coming from monsters. On the small square, everyone held their breaths and prepared themselves. Wind and the stench of blood came from the darkness. A few severed limbs flew out from the secret passage and fell to the ground. The sound of chewing continued. Everyone became tense. Gu Qing-shan raised her swords, preparing to dash off. The card sovereign hazed in suddenly exclaimed in surprise. What is it? The flame ruler Guyan immediately asked. Gu Qing-shan and the giant purgatory archfiend also showed expressions of concern. It should be understood that at this crucial moment, there was no room for any mishaps. Hazed-in glanced at the covenant in his hand and replied, It's nothing. It's just that Gu Qing-shan, you've suddenly gained a new identity. What identity? Everyone couldn't help but ask at the same time. Hazed-in stared closely at the covenant and muttered, Leader of the Dance of Secrets. Gu Qing-shan's expression changed. In a split second, the sound of hot-blooded war drums resounded. Dong 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 dong. Dong 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 dong. Dong 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 dong. Dong 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 dong. Dong dong dong. Everyone was stunned. Where did this music come from? The purgatory archfiend Sha Chong spoke in a hoarse voice. War drums? That's quite fitting. My blood is already boiling my ass. Gu Qing-shan's heart sank. Oh no, this is the rhythm of a dance. Last time, I almost did it, causing Zhang Youngho's group to turn green from fright. I rebuffed it back then, which means I have no choice but to dance this time. Damn it, this isn't even a grand occasion, and didn't I only keep the Dream Jolt skill? Speaking of which, didn't the four pillar gods and those great entities from the void say that oaths can't be broken? Four pillar gods, where's your integrity? Gu Qing-shan didn't have the heart to think about it anymore and hurriedly told everyone, Everyone, run away. I'm about to start the dance. Before anyone could react, a bald old man had appeared next to Gu Qing-shan, the strongest combatant of the bygone era. Gu Qing-shan hurriedly said, You came out again. That's great. Please see if you can stop the dance. I'm in a battle right now. I really can't dance. The old man appeared surprised and shook his head. This is your own dance. I can't stop it. Then you only came out to take a look. After all, this dance seems to be resonating with a faraway place. The old man pointed towards the secret passage and said, Gu Qing-shan froze. A thought flashed through his mind. Perhaps this occultism dance is somehow related to the dusty world? Apparently sensing something, the old man muttered, This dance was bestowed upon you by that entity, a dance specifically made for you, but you've never danced it before. So this is most likely a practice dance. Practice dance? Gu Qing-shan was stunned. Indeed, the old man nodded. You'll be controlled by the dance, explaining the movements while teaching you the dance. At another location, the 7 masked cultivators had arrived at a certain location in the secret passage. A black figure stood in front of them. Did everyone have a smooth journey? The black figure spoke with a hoarse voice. Everything went smoothly, but there were quite a few ants traveling with us that spoiled our mood. The leader of the masked cultivators replied. The black figure seemed to smile and said, Don't worry, this is our turf. If we don't let anyone in, the only thing left for them is death. These words were filled with killing intent. The masked cultivators went silent for a few moments. The black figure was pleased with their attitude and continued. How about we take a look at the scene of those people being eaten? That should be enough to satisfy you. It reached its hand out and drew a line in the void of space. Immediately, the scene at the entrance of the secret passage was displayed. The first thing they heard was a strange music. La la la, la la la, bam bam bam. Bam 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 bam. Bam 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 bam. A scene then appeared in front of everyone. Gu Qingshan was standing at the very front, elegantly dancing as she spoke. 1, 2, 3, kick. It's about to spin, Sha Chong. Make sure you keep your stomach in. 4, 5, 6, Haze Din and Guyan. Step forward, no need to shake your shoulders. Just follow me and twist your buttocks. Yes, twist left, twist right, very good. Let's continue. Everyone meticulously danced. On the plaza, various hideous skeletons that had lost their flesh and blood knelt on the ground, all of them making a devout, praying gesture. There was no fighting. There were no living monsters. There was only dance, dance, dance. Chapter 1144. The Small Square. The entrance to the secret passage. Everyone was lying on the ground, breathing heavily. Your dance is quite strong, the fiend Sha Chong praised as he breathed heavily. After entering this place, everyone's powers have been taken away, so they now only had normal bodies. Performing such a high-intensity dance took quite a bit of stamina. Sky Haze's Emperor Haze Din barely managed to sit up, wiped the sweat off his forehead, and asked, "That's why you kept this skill?" Gu Qingshan didn't have the face to explain, but she couldn't just ignore him either, so she could only mumble a reply through her nose. The flame ruler glanced at Gu Qingshan and spoke with a complicated expression. "In my entire life, I've killed countless people, but I've never danced a but-swinging dance before." Gu Qingshan clasped her fist. "I'm really sorry, even I couldn't control this skill when it was activated, but at least it's somewhat useful." Everyone looked around, only to see that the entire square was filled with piles of bones. Just now, countless monsters came out from the secret passage, wanting to kill them all. Each of them was stronger than the monster that appeared before them. Countless spells, sharp weapons, claws, teeth, and all sorts of unique abilities that no one had ever seen before were aimed at them. Everyone just danced. A hoarse female voice resounded from the void of space. She only said a single sentence. "Those who disrespect the sacrificial dance shall die," and then the monsters all died. All their flesh and souls rose into the air, turning into nothingness. Only their skeletons remained kneeling on the ground, making a gesture of repentance and prayer. In retrospect, the entire process was still filled with a sense of horror and absurdity. Fortunately, this power belonged to my side. The flame ruler Guyan pondered for a bit, then slowly calmed down and didn't care about it anymore. Everyone rested for a bit and slowly regained their senses. Haze Din called out to his subordinates behind him. One of them took out a card and tossed it into the middle of the empty square. Poof! The card turned into a long table filled with a dazzling array of food and drinks. Haze Din took out a bottle of magic water, opened it, and drank from it. "My throat is a bit thirsty after that fierce dance. Please help yourselves." Gu Yan's eyes flickered. He had made many preparations and even had his subordinates prepare destructive spells, but he had forgotten about food and drink. "Thank you." Gu Qingshan had already dragged Su Sher to the front to choose the food. Gu Yan nodded to the people behind him. Everyone began to eat and drink. "I really need to replenish my stamina, otherwise I won't have the stamina to explore the secret passage later. It's been many years since I've felt restrained by the weakness of my body." Gu Yan sighed with emotion while eating a piece of cake. At this time, Sha Chong walked towards Gu Qingshan with a puzzled expression and said, "There seems to be something wrong with the dance just now. What problem?" Gu Qingshan asked. Su Sher had peeled a fresh fruit and was feeding him. Sha Chong said, "Look, during the second section, I was already following the beat and turning around, so why do I feel a little uncoordinated?" After saying that, it shook its body from head to toe, and it even jumped with a bit of charm. Gu Qingshan, "Everyone, if an evil creature like you can't coordinate that dance, then it's better for this world to be destroyed. But I can't say that out loud." Gu Qingshan sighed and said, "I really admire serious people like you, But this movement, dash-a-dong, dong, dong, oh, dong, 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 oh, the music suddenly resounded, as if the dance was about to begin again. Instantly, Gu Qing-shan went silent. Haze Din and Gu Yin came forward and dragged Sha Chong away. Ah, for the sake of this grand dance, let's first have a drink, Haze Din said. That's right, from now on, we're all fellow dancers, come. Let's have a toast. Cheers, Gu Yin said. The two of them sat Sha Chong down at the long table and began to drink with him. Sha Chong was a bit confused at first, but after a few drinks, he became interested and began to drink with the two leaders. It was only now that the music slowly died down. Ho! Everyone let out a sigh of relief. That was close. We're all experts who've gone through countless battles and rounds of selection to come here to explore the ruins. We're not here to perform a group dance. Gu Qingshan also wiped the cold sweat off his forehead. He really didn't want to perform this shameful dance in front of Su Cher again. But speaking of Su Cher, her dance just now was truly beautiful. This dance was practically designed for a young and alluring girl like her. Qingshan, I have a small question, Su Cher whispered. Go ahead, Gu Qingshan replied. Su Cher stammered, why did your kissing technique? It's all your fault, Gu Qingshan said with a stern expression. Su Cher froze. My fault? Gu Qingshan continued. When we were in a bowl, you placed 3 layers of seals on me, one of which was the witch's gift kiss. I have an ability that allows me to use the power of my soul to instantly learn a certain skill. That's how I learned this kiss technique and was able to break it. Otherwise, how else do you think I was able to enter Tree's collection world again? His voice slowly became smaller as he muttered, How regretful that you ran away. Otherwise, we could have fought together. Su Cher was stunned. So before that, you haven't kissed anyone else? She asked. Gu Qingshan sighed in relief and swore. I really haven't. The corner of Su Cher's lips slowly curled up. Really? She touched Gu Qingshan's cheek, then his earlobe and the nape of his neck. If I knew you were this strong, I would have fought together with you. It's all my fault. Let's not talk about this anymore and eat something. I'm really tired from dancing just now. After resting for a bit, they were about to set off again. There are no longer any sounds coming from the secret passage. That scene just now was probably enough to scare even the monsters. They wouldn't dare to attack again until they had a good grasp of the situation. Before they set off, Haze Din gathered the other 3 for a meeting. He cleared his throat and said, We've already agreed. We only managed to survive after going through an intense battle. Just now, the others were a bit surprised, then slowly realized what he meant. Guyan explained, I used the Flame Fist technique to charge into the enemy's formation, unleashed 500 rupturing fists in a row, and killed 23 monsters. Gu Qingshan muses, I only used 200 sword strikes to cut 17 monsters down to their bones. Haze Din continued. I used the spirit card to summon a group of soldiers and killed 5 of the strangest monsters. Behind him was a scribe, who was holding a pen and taking notes at high speed. As one of the strongest kingdoms in the Mystic Zones, this was the history of the Sky Haze royal family's conquest, something that would be passed down to future generations. After everyone returned, this matter was decided. As for the dancing, what? What dancing? Can dancing kill enemies? No one would ever mention the dancing. The people of the future would only remember the epic battle between the Sky Haze Emperor and the Flame Ruler, the Dragon Slayer of the Age of Old, and the Purgatory Archfiend. The Purgatory Archfiend. All right, there was also a heroic Purgatory Archfiend in the battle just now. As one of the 4 alliances, it was also a powerful force that helped them achieve victory. The 3 of them looked at the Purgatory Archfiend. You should also say something. Think carefully before you say anything. This is something that will be passed down to future generations, Haze Din hinted. That's right. The 4 of us fought side by side, went through thick and thin, and finally defeated the monsters, Guyan hinted. That was truly an epic battle. Gu Qingshan also nodded in agreement. Seeing them say that, the Purgatory Archfiend, Sha Chong, knew that it had to be serious. Sure enough, it seriously thought about it for a while, then sullenly said, Truthfully, I've been thinking for a long time, but there's only one thing that I haven't figured out yet. What is it? Gu Qingshan asked. When we jumped just now, The three of you stood at the very front and were responsible for swinging your butts. Why didn't you bring me to such an eye-catching position? We already agreed to be allies. We even signed the contract clearly. Why didn't you bring me? Chapter 1145. Sha Chong was stripped of his historical narration. The historian quickly recorded the entire epic battle according to Hayes Din, Guyan, and Gu Qingshan's descriptions. Of course, Sha Chong didn't need to know this. Guyan signaled with his eyes to have his subordinates pull Sha Chong away to continue drinking. Hayes Din read through the battle record and nodded in satisfaction. He showed it to Gu Qingshan. Gu Qingshan then gave it to Guyan. Both of them were satisfied. That's right. This is the truth. All right, let's go, Gu Qingshan said. He drew his swords and was about to go to the front of the group. It's best if you don't go to the front. Hayes Din pulled him back. Guyan said in a roundabout way, your swordsmanship is powerful, so you need to act at the most crucial moment. So you should stay behind us for now. Sha Chong's voice came from afar. You really can't go to the front. I'll be honest, just by looking at your back right now, I feel like you're going to take the lead again with that. Not only did Gu Qingshan find it hard to refute, everyone else also nodded in agreement. Gu Qingshan could only retreat, feeling a bit annoyed. I don't have to take any risks this way. Why am I annoyed? He quickly adjusted his mentality. It's better for my men to scout the path, Roland said. Sha Chong said and waved his hand. Two evil creatures stepped out from behind him, their limbs touching the ground. The evil creatures slowly turned into two gray hounds, their bodies engulfed in the flames of purgatory. Go, Sha Chong ordered. The two hounds of purgatory went into the dark tunnel. Inside was the secret passage to the dusty world. A few moments later, Sha Chong suddenly said, no problem, it's safe inside. Then we'll go as well, Hayes Din said. Everyone nodded. Hayes Din's subordinates, Guyan's followers, and Sha Chong's subordinates spread out and entered the secret passage. Gu Qingshan looked at everyone's movements, then pulled Su Sher back with him. Together with Hayes Din's group, they finally entered the secret passage. Complete darkness. There were some glowing minerals and gems on the small plaza that could illuminate the surroundings. But after entering, he could barely see anything. If it weren't for the infernal flames that evil creatures were born with, if it weren't for the fact that Guyan and the others practiced fire-type spells, perhaps everyone would have no choice but to advance in the dark. The slippery steps were covered with sticky bloodstains and minced meat. Many people accidentally fell on the steps and rolled down a long distance. Sometimes, as soon as he steadied himself on the ground, he would see the half-eaten heads and the wriggling remains of the monsters. After a while, Hayes Din finally couldn't help himself and gestured to his follower. Someone immediately cast a spell. Boiling wind. The gale howled, blowing the entire path downward. The messy corpses and blood were all swept away by the gale, eventually disappearing into the void. The road finally became a little easier to walk on, but it was impossible to completely clean up the bloodstains, so there were still large patches of red and black on the road. This technique is used to prevent poisonous fog and bewildering environments, Hayes Din explained. That's not a bad way to use it, Gu Qingshan commented. Everyone continued walking down the path. About half an hour later, stop, Sha Chong said. Everyone stopped. Did we run into an enemy ahead? Guyan asked. No, take a look at this, Sha Chong said. It whistled. A blurred figure appeared in front of them. A purgatory hound returned to the group with something in its mouth. Sha Chong gave the item to Guyan. I'm not sure. Our civilization doesn't have such a creature, Guyan replied. Guyan shook his head and gave it to Hayes Din. Hayes Din also couldn't recognize it. It ended up in Gu Qingshan's hands. Gu Qingshan carefully observed it. This was a small piece of bone. Unlike the known creatures of the 900 million world layers, this bone claw was covered in countless spikes. Each bone was engraved with ancient runes. The war god UI didn't react at all, which meant that this bone was useless. Do you recognize it? Guyan asked. I don't. Gu Qingshan shook her head while focusing her attention on the bone. If you don't recognize it, what are you looking at? Sha Chong asked in a hoarse voice. Gu Qingshan smiled and said, Please give me a bit more light. This place isn't bright enough. I need to take a good look. Sha Chong walked in front of him. The flames of purgatory were still burning on its body, illuminating Gu Qingshan's surroundings. Gu Qingshan continued to observe the bone with the help of a light. Did you find anything? Haze Din asked. It's hard to say. This bone isn't pure, Gu Qingshan replied. Not pure? Haze Din doubtfully asked. That's right. This isn't the bone of a living being. You should know I can tell the weight and hardness of a living being's bones as soon as I touch them. I know where to cut them and how much strength to use. But this bone doesn't seem to be a simple bone. Saying so, Gu Qingshan tossed the bone into the air. A sword gleam flashed. Crack! The bone was cut in half and fell down. Haze Din caught the bone together with him and looked again. Surprisingly, there was a small corpse in this piece of bone. The corpse was only about the size of a thumb. It turned into dust as it came into contact with the wind and disappeared without a trace. A pixie! Gu Qingshan and Haze Din exclaimed at the same time. The two of them exchanged glances, not knowing why they would run into a pixie's corpse here. At this point, Sha Chong seemed to have sensed something and told the group. There's something ahead. Everyone moved forward again. About 10 minutes later, they arrived at the place Sha Chong mentioned. Two purgatory hounds were wandering around here. Not too far away from them, a giant skeletal claw appeared. The passage should have been wide enough for 7 to 8 people to walk side by side, but this skeletal claw had completely filled up the entire passage, leaving only a small gap. The walls around them were scratched by the skeletal claw. From the looks of it, it looked like the skeletal claw was trying to grab something. Everyone observed the skeletal claw. It's blocking the passage, Haze Din muttered. Guyan doubtfully asked. But this skeletal claw isn't moving at all, as if it hasn't moved for a very long time. How did those mass cultivators get through? Sha Chong replied. Isn't it obvious? They probably teleported away directly. Guyan glanced at it but didn't say anything. Sha Chong thought for a bit, then signaled one of the purgatory hounds to come forward. The purgatory hound jumped forward and tried biting the skeletal claw. The skeletal claw didn't move. The other purgatory hound squeezed through the gap between the skeletal claw, stuck close to the wall, and returned after a while. The purgatory hound reported, Boss, the skeletal claw was connected to a thick arm bone, which completely blocked the passage without leaving a single gap for us to pass through. So I had no choice but to return, everyone pondered. What kind of monsters' remains are these, and why are they so large? Haze Din gestured. His two subordinates tossed cards into the air, which transformed into ice and fire spell techniques, all of which crashed heavily into the skeletal claw. The skeletal claw didn't move at all, and even after the spells ended, it was unharmed. Could it be an inanimate object? To be able to resist both ice and fire, the material seems to be quite strong. Sha Chong pondered for a bit, then ordered, Seems like this thing has been around for a long time. It's probably broken now. The few of you go and clean it up so that everyone can pass through. The evil creatures stepped forward, raised their weapons, and struck the skeletal claw with all their might. As soon as they struck it, everyone felt their vision blurring. The ferocious skeletal claw left several afterimages in its wake as it grabbed the evil creatures and crushed them into meat paste. Green blood splattered all over the wall. The skeletal claw retracted and disappeared without a trace. It was now that everyone realized. Bastard! You dared to kill my people. I want you dead. Sha Chong angrily roared and was about to charge forward. Gu Qingshan stopped it and shouted, You're not a match for it. As Sha Chong was about to say something, it heard a sound. A desperate scream resounded from afar behind the skeletal claw. The scream slowly faded away. The sound of heavy chewing could be heard again and again. Everyone's hearts slowly sank. The owner of this skeletal claw was eating. What kind of entity could have such a gigantic claw? This entity seemed to be stuck in the passage, only able to reach out with its skeletal claw and wait for its prey to take the bait. We've all lost our powers, Haze Din solemnly said. Spells are useless against it, and with its speed and strength, we can't deal with it. Sha Chong opened its mouth, but couldn't say anything. Gu Qingshan pondered. At first, it let the purgatory hounds bite at it without moving, Only when 7 to 8 of them took the bait did it strike. Obviously, this monster is still alive. While everyone was talking, a series of rumbling noises resounded from the end of the passage. The skeletal claw once again approached and appeared in everyone's line of sight. It laid there without moving, blocking the path forward as if it had never moved in the first place. Tick-tock, tick-tock. The evil creature's blood slowly dripped from the skeletal claw. Chapter 1146. Spell after spell struck the giant skeletal claw. Although everyone had been stripped of their abilities, they were still able to attack with their full strength when using their skills. The skeletal claw didn't move at all, completely unharmed. That's a bit terrifying. Gu Shan silently sighed as he looked at the terrifying appearance of the skeletal claw. How regretful that I can't take out the true Crimson Demon Spear right now. Otherwise, I would definitely slice off this monster from its hand to its tail. His thoughts turned as he focused his gaze on the void of space. Reading the lines of glowing text, frowny face, you've completed the first practice of the dance of the Earth God. Through this practice, your strength has increased to a certain extent. Through this practice, your reaction speed has increased. Through this practice, your stamina has doubled. The aftermath of the dance of the Earth God is spreading towards the depths of the secret passage. It's hard to predict whether this will be a blessing or a curse. After reading through this, Gu Shan indeed felt her incredibly weak body gaining a bit more strength. Of course, this strength was so minuscule that it couldn't be compared to when she was still a cultivator. But in an environment where everyone was stripped of their powers, this increase in strength was still useful. War God UI, what do you mean by it's hard to predict whether this will be a blessing or a curse? Gu Shan asked. The War God UI didn't answer. Gu Shan thought for a bit, then replied, I owe you 200 soul points for now. I'll pay you back after we return. The War God UI remained silent. Gu Shan raised her eyebrows and said, I'll pay you back double. Hurry up and tell me. Ting. A clear chime of acknowledgement. The War God UI replied. It's hard to predict whether this will be a blessing or a curse. It means that the aftermath of the living being's sacrificial dance is currently spreading, and something is sensing the sacrificial dance, attempting to send a faint feedback, but we have no way of knowing what it is. Gu Shan's thoughts flickered, then suddenly turned to Su-Sher and asked in a low voice, Shu'er, how did you get here? Su-Sher replied, I am the sole heir of the 9 lords. I obtained 9 starlight cloaks. Starlight cloaks? Gu Shan repeated. Yes, it seems that my strength has reached some minimum standard, so they formed a star chart and brought me here. Furthermore, I heard that this place leads to a sealed world, where you can obtain the power of occultism. You should also know that within the 900 million world layers, occultism is the rarest type of power, so that was how it was. It seems like the Dusty World really was related to occultism, which was why the living being sacrificial dance was suddenly triggered. In fact, Gu Shan could feel it too. Ever since he came here, the sacrificial dance gave him a restless feeling. As the most powerful and uncontrollable power in his body, there had to be a reason for the sacrificial dance to have such a reaction. The answer was Gu Shan looked at the secret passage in front of her. The depths of a secret passage? Or was it a dusty world? The giant bone claw lay there quietly, not moving at all, completely blocking the passage. In the end, he still had to find a way to get to the bottom of it. Try it. Gu Shan said to Su-Sher. Su-Sher drew a card and threw it out. Numerous blood sea divine weapons appeared from the void of space, striking the giant bone claw. The bone claw was still unharmed, but it seemed to be feeling pain as it was forced to dodge the attacks of the blood sea divine weapons, but didn't retreat at all. Su-Sher had no choice but to put her card back. Sha Chong dejectedly said, We can't go any further. What do you think we should do now? Everyone fell silent. Gu Shan thought briefly, then asked, Who has the ability to search through walls? One of Guyan's subordinates stepped forward. I can do it. I can use my ears as a clairvoyant through walls, the man replied. Gu Shan turned to ask Sha Chong, Where was the bone that contained the pixie's corpse from before? Sha Chong retreated a few dozen meters and pointed at a corner of the wall. It was here, Gu Shan replied. Pixies are the best at concealment. As long as they don't want to be seen, they won't be seen. Hazeden's eyes glowed, asking, You mean, I'll have to try to find out, Gu Shan replied. Guyan had already told his subordinate, Follow the Age of Old Dragon Slayer's instructions and investigate. Understood, the subordinate replied, ran to the corner of the wall, and pressed his ear against it. Everyone looked at him, silently waiting for the result. After listening for a while, he shook his head. This wall is very thick, at least several 10,000 miles thick. I won't be able to hear anything further, Gu Shan said. Listen up there. The subordinate then had one of his companions lift him up. He pressed his ear against the ceiling, then said, There's nothing but the ocean above. There's no land at all. Gu Shan had already guessed this. Originally, the outside of the secret passage was either a wall or the ocean. Although they had walked quite a distance, compared to the boundless ocean, it clearly wasn't very far. Gu Shan said, Listen to the other wall. The subordinate jumped down from his companion's shoulder and went to listen to the other wall. It's still several 10,000 miles thick. I won't be able to hear anything further, he sighed and said. Everyone was a bit dejected. Gu Shan remained unmoved and continued. Listen to the ground. Seeing how persistent he was, the subordinate had no choice but to lie down and press his ear against the ground to listen. A few moments later, he didn't stand up, nor did he say anything, but his expression slowly became one of surprise. At this point, everyone was paying close attention. What did you hear? Guyan couldn't help but ask. My lord, it's completely dark down there. I can't see clearly, but I think there's a large insect lying there, the subordinate replied. Insect, how big is it? Sha Chong asked. The subordinate gestured and replied, According to humans' common measurement unit, it's around 100 meters long, an insect that was around 100 meters long. Hearing that, everyone was a bit shaken. 100 meters long body, with our current strength, I'm not sure if we can win against it, Guyan mused. Gu Shan replied, There's no need to think about it. If it really is an existence as powerful as the skeletal claw, we won't be able to defeat it. Why not? Sha Chong was unconvinced. Haze-Din casually replied, Because the insect can move, attack, and retreat without being restrained, while the skeletal claw is stuck here. Unable to move, Gu Shan thought for a bit, then loudly asked, Does anyone know about the pixie's habits? Everyone shook their heads. The pixie were the most mysterious of races. It was rare to even see one on a normal day. So how could they possibly know about them? Gu Shan sighed. This won't be good. While he was thinking, someone suddenly pulled on the corner of his shirt. Su Cher. I know a bit, she whispered. Gu Shan was surprised. How do you know about the pixie? Have you ever come into contact with them? I've never come into contact with them. Su Cher shook her head and continued. When I was studying at Fogal Academy, I once read through every single book in the Academy's library, then followed my Shifu to the House of Law and read through all of his books, using a spell to memorize them all. After that, I went to the Holy Church. The Holy Church's library was even more abundant, so I applied to be a librarian as well, spending most of my free time in the library without going out. Gu Shan was a bit absent-minded, then smiled. You've already graduated from high school. Why do you still love to study so much? Su Cher spoke with a serious expression. I've always believed in one thing. The more you know, the more chances you have. Knowledge can give a person the chance to change their fate. Gu Shan crossed her arms, thinking, Seems like you and Impartial Goddess can become very good friends. That's what she's always believed. Impartial Goddess has been very good to me. I'll have to thank her when I return, Su Cher continued. Right now, I can roughly remember everything about the pixies. What? Do you want to know, Shan? I want to know what the pixies do when they're in danger. It would be even better if it was limited to a secret passage or something like that, Gu Shan said. Su Cher thought for a bit, then answered, Burrow into the ground, burrow. Yes, when they're in extreme danger. They'll burrow into the ground and disappear without a trace, Su Cher continued. There was once a man who was exploring an ancient ruin, but as soon as he entered the tunnel began to collapse. Without any other choice, he could only run away. While he was running, he suddenly saw a pixie carrying a bag full of shiny gems, hurriedly running away from the ruin. The tunnel was collapsing too quickly. It was already too late. the man activated a teleportation scroll. At the very last moment of his escape, he saw the pixie burrow into the ground and disappear from sight. Hearing that, Gu Shan asked again, "What's the relationship between pixies and insects?" "Any kind of insect would do. Or rather, do they like to raise insects?" Su Shuier recalled for a bit, then continued, "Pixies hate insects to the bone. They only like beautiful, magical, and extravagant things. In fact, the first bottle of insecticide in the 900 million world layers was produced by them, then silently spread it across the infinite worlds." "All right, I understand. Shuier is really amazing." Gu Shan stroked her head, drew his sword, and walked to the corner of the secret passage. "Is it here?" He pointed at a certain spot and asked the subordinate. "It's here, but I don't know how to get down," the subordinate answered. Gu Shan used his sword to strike the floor tiles one by one. When he knocked on the 11th tile, the ground made a trembling sound. Following that, the stone floor opened up and Gu Shan fell down. Everyone went into an uproar. Su Shuier exclaimed in surprise, quickly ran over, and jumped down. While still in the air, she had already drawn her card, ready to fight at any moment. But no fighting happened. A pair of strong arms caught her. "Relax, it's safe here," Gu Shan told her. He had already guessed everything, but he forgot about Su Shuier's reaction. Fortunately, both his strength and reaction speed had been improved. Otherwise, he might not have been able to catch Su Shuier. That 100-meter-long insect dash. While saying that, Su Shuier followed Gu Shan's line of sight. Neither of them said anything. That wasn't an insect. It was a steel train covered in dust, suspended alone on the long track, leading to the lonely and empty depths of the darkness. "Shan, what is it?" Gu Shan stared closely at the metal train and asked. Su Shuier lowered her voice. "My star chart has been activated." Chapter 1147. Don't move. Gu Shan hugged Su Shuier and slowly returned to the middle of the road from the edge of the tracks. He sighed and put Su Shuier down. Outside of the tracks was a bottomless darkness that couldn't be seen, nor could they tell how deep it was. As for the secret passage that had been opened above the tracks, it was rising higher and further away. The secret passage was about to leave the tracks. Gu Shan was a bit surprised. He didn't think it would be a secret passage that could change. This way, no one would be able to use the same method to reach this place again. The better news was that after the secret passage left this place, the giant skeletal claw and its master had also left this place. The people on the tracks became rowdy, apparently trying to think of a way to get down. Taking this chance, Gu Shan asked Su Shuier, "The star chart has been activated? What does it show?" "It shows the name of this train, called the Explorer." There's a line of text next to it. It says, "The train has entered hibernation. The physical activation switch is hidden next to the 11th window of the third carriage. It's a square button." Gu Shan observed the metal train not too far away and muttered, "Seems like this was something left behind by the Starlight Empire." The entire train was divided into 4 carriages, each about 20 meters tall, silently waiting on the tracks. At this point, Hayes Din came down with his men. "So, it's a technological existence," Hayes Din said in surprise. Guyan also came down. "Didn't you say it was an insect?" He glared at his subordinate. The subordinate felt wronged. "My lord, it really does look like an insect." Everyone didn't bother to look at him. An insect that was over 100 meters long. That really scared everyone. Guyan apologetically said, "I'm sorry, our world is a magic type. This brat didn't study properly, so he doesn't know anything about technological things." "Who cares what it is? Let's just test it out first," Sha Chong said. It then made a gesture. 2 purgatory hounds covered in faint flames leapt out and quickly arrived in front of the train. They cautiously stared at the metal train and bared their teeth. Everyone watched from behind. All of a sudden, the 2 purgatory hounds barked. Woof, 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 woof. Woof, 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 woof. The train did not move. Sha Chong stroked his chin and muttered, "How strange, such a big body. Could it be that it's looking down on me like that giant claw above?" Gu Shan, Guyan, Hayes Din, Su Shuier explained in a low voice, "This is a kind of transportation vehicle. It won't react if it's not ignited." "Ah, how could there be such a stupid thing?" Sha Chong mocked. No one had the energy to explain anymore. Hayes Din cleared his throat and said, "Let's take a look together, all right?" Everyone agreed. A group of people came to the front of the steel train and examined it carefully. Probably because it had been here for too long, the entire train was covered in a thick layer of dust. A light touch would cause the dust to fly everywhere. Hayes Din covered his nose and scowled. "Clean. Yes, Your Majesty." His guards immediately took action. Boiling wind and a water spell washed the surface of the train, revealing the original appearance of the train. Guyan was holding a cluster of flames in his hand, illuminating the train as if it was daytime. He pondered, "I don't know what you think, but I have a feeling that it's not good. The tracks were filled with dry bones that turned to ash at a single touch, obviously dead for who knows how many years." As for the train, the surface of the train was covered in various slashes, scratches, and cuts, as well as large clumps of old blood that looked like graffiti. Quite obviously, an extremely intense battle had taken place here. A skeleton was leaning on the window of the train, still making a hammering motion even in death. It was frozen right outside the window. "Seems like it couldn't get on the train," Gu Qingshan commented. Hayes Din resolutely said, "We don't need to think of a way to get on this train, why not?" Gu Qingshan was surprised. "I remember that trains on the technological side are very fast for normal people, so if there were any problems ahead, the train would be too fast, and we would have no choice but to crash into it," Guyan also added. "Since we're all mortals right now, no matter if we crash into the train or if we fall into the darkness on both sides of the tracks, we wouldn't be able to survive." Saying so, he casually picked up a rock on the tracks and threw it into the darkness outside the tracks. Everyone listened carefully, but no sound of impact could be heard. There was no way to determine how deep it was outside the tracks. Gu Qingshan then said, "That's a good idea, but we still need to take a closer look." He pulled Su Sher to take a look at the train. Sha Chong looked down at the two hellhounds. "If we have to go on our own, then we should let them scout the way." The two hellhounds quickly followed the tracks and moved forward. The others began to study the marks on the train. Someone drew his weapon and slashed at the train. Sparks flew. The metal exterior of the train wasn't damaged at all. This time, everyone understood its defensive capabilities. Gu Qingshan brought Su Sher around the train. The train's doors were tightly shut, unable to be opened from the outside. "Do you have the train structure on the star chart?" Gu Qingshan asked. "I don't." Su Sher shook his head. Suddenly, an electronic voice came. "I have all the information on the Starlight Empire, currently displaying the Explorer's structure and functions." Su Sher also heard it and was a bit surprised. "This is a super space-time weapon from Impartial Goddess," Gu Qingshan explained. While he was explaining to Su Sher, for some reason, the entire structure of the Explorer train appeared in his mind. Gu Qingshan carefully checked the train's functions and sighed after a while. "Impressive," he couldn't help but exclaim. "Even more advanced than our technology?" Su Sher asked. "Much more advanced," Gu Qingshan sincerely replied. "Compared to the blazing heaven you created all those years ago." When Su Sher was about to continue asking, the electronic voice cut him off. "Sir Gu Qingshan, is there any other information you would like to know?" Su Sher could only begrudgingly shut his mouth. "Just now, you used brainwave transmission?" Gu Qingshan asked in return. "Indeed," the electronic voice answered. "What kind of ability did you leave behind? Was it brainwave transmission?" Gu Qingshan asked again. "Data transmission is only an instinct of this technological life form. The ability left behind by this super space-time weapon is used to participate in war," the electronic voice answered. Gu Qingshan shrugged. "What about weapons?" "I actually need a technological weapon right now," the electronic voice answered. "Changing from a plastic surgery device to a weapon of war is a very large step. It will take a certain amount of time." "All right, there's no rush. We have something we can use right now." Gu Qingshan reached her hand out, pressed it against a certain square button on the wall of the train. This place was right next to the 11th window of the third carriage. As soon as Gu Qingshan pressed the button, an unassuming gray handle popped up. All of a sudden, Sha Chong's voice resounded from the other side of the train. "Oh no, both of my dogs are dead." Hayes Din asked, "What's the situation?" "A monster," Sha Chong called out. "The tracks ahead have been broken. A gigantic monster is climbing up from below. It's heading straight for us. The group immediately became tense. My men, gather over here and prepare for battle. Hayes Den loudly ordered. Everyone, prepare for battle. Guyan also said. Sha Chong dejectedly said. We can't, that guy is too terrifying with our current state. Hazelden angrily shouted. If you want to be eaten, then go ahead, we're going to fight. Sha Chong finally regained his composure and called out to the evil creatures. Everyone, prepare to fight to the death. On the other side of the train, Su Sher grabbed Gu Qingshan's hand and looked at him. Gu Qingshan gave her a reassuring look. It's fine. Just as you said, knowledge can change one's fate. He grabbed the gray handle with his other hand and pulled it back. Crack! Rumble, rumble, rumble. The entire train began to shake intensely. A flash of light shot out from the train and scanned through everyone. A second later, a cold and metallic voice resounded from inside the train. Frowny face. Self-assessment in progress. Self-assessment complete. Integrity 87%. Detected possessor of the Starlight bloodline. Detected a great threat approaching this train. Engage the enemy in 1 minute. Entering combat state. Await further orders. The voice faded away. A line of rapidly disappearing numbers appeared in the darkness above the train. 1 minute. Time was quickly passing. Gu Qingshan squeezed Su Sher's hand and said, Shui Er, it's your turn, huh? Right. I'm the possessor of the Starlight bloodline, but what should I do? Su Sher asked. Gu Qingshan recalled the various functions of the train in her mind and replied, You authorized me to use this train. Su Sher reacted and asked, You want to use it to fight? The ground began to shake. Faintly, the sound of heavy footsteps could be heard heading towards this direction. The only ones here who understand technology are you and I. I just received the blueprint of the train's functions and know how to use it. Not to mention, I'm more familiar with combat than anyone else, Gu Qingshan replied. Su Sher nervously said, Then I want to come with you. Of course, I have a co-driver, Gu Qingshan replied. A voice then resounded from the train, frowny face engaging the enemy. Final countdown of 20 seconds, 19, 18, 17. Su Shui Er immediately shouted, I authorize this man next to me. Let him lead me in a battle. Come. Order accepted. The metallic voice went silent. A flash of light swept through Gu Qingshan and Su Sher. The two of them vanished in an instant. The train abruptly stood up from the tracks. It reached out its two metallic hands to grab onto the tracks to prevent itself from falling. Following that, countless metallic parts quickly and perfectly combined to form a gigantic humanoid body. The metallic giant slowly stood up from its half-kneeling position. Starlight mech has been loaded. Please select your weapon. Selection complete. Star Sundering Sword. Activate. The metallic giant drew a short metal rod from its thigh. A long streak of burning light appeared on the metal rod, continuously tearing through the void of space around it. The metallic giant lowered its body, wielded its sword, and retreated. It abruptly disappeared from everyone's sight. Ignore that technological artifact. Look ahead. Sha Chong shouted. Everyone quickly retracted their shock and turned to look at the tracks. The ground was shaking more and more violently. Engage the enemy, Hayes Den angrily shouted. A second later, from the darkness ahead, a gigantic figure abruptly leapt out. It was a monster covered in black flames with a mouth full of sharp fangs. This monster was several dozen meters tall. The lonely tracks in the darkness were constantly being melted and broken by its steps. Behind it, all things were destroyed, leaving nothing but nothingness. It was exactly like a monster from myths and legends. The monster looked down at everyone and spoke with a resounding voice. Fresh meat, all of you are my food. Before it could finish, the metallic giant appeared from another direction. It wielded the sword of light in its hand and abruptly thrust it into the monster's chest. Chapter 1148. The gigantic metal armor wielded its sword with both hands and abruptly slashed downwards. The sound of intense wind howling filled the void of space as the star-rending sword gave off a blinding light. A flash of light. The monster was sliced in half, tumbled in the air, and quickly fell into the darkness. Everyone cheered in unison. But the metal armor simply stood still, slightly bent its knees, raised its sword, and assumed a defensive stance. A nervous voice came from the Iron Man war armor. "Hurry and run, there's a maintenance staircase on the left side of the 5th section of the track. You'll be able to leave this place by following the staircase. Hurry." This was Gu Qingshan's voice, full of urging. Everyone's expressions changed. Hayden and Guyan were both smart people, so they quickly ran to the 5th section of the track and looked down along the edge of the track. Sure enough, a thin black metal staircase formed, extending step by step towards the depths of the darkness. This staircase seemed to be made from a unique material, completely undetectable and hidden within the darkness. If it weren't for Gu Qingshan's reminder, no one would have been able to notice the staircase's existence. "Hurry!" Guyan shouted in a low voice. Everyone began to climb the staircase, carefully heading deeper into the darkness. Hayden stopped and loudly asked the metal armor, "If we leave, what about you?" Gu Qingshan's voice resounded. "If you stay here, you'll only die. You won't be able to do anything. I can still hold it off for a bit. Let's see how it goes." As soon as she said so, the gigantic metal armor lightly leapt up and moved away. Boom! A cluster of black flames struck where it stood and melted a large section of the track. Following that, the ferocious monster appeared behind the metal armor and abruptly crashed into it. The metal armor was sent flying and vanished into the darkness. The monster gathered all the black flames in its hand and looked down at everyone. Trying to run, it smirked and was about to attack. At this point, the metal armor abruptly leapt out from the darkness and swung its sword with all its might. The monster was cut in half, but at the very last moment, it threw a cluster of black flames at the metal armor. In a split second, the metal armor's position shifted slightly. The black flames struck the metal armor's left arm and dragged it away. The two gigantic monsters were sent flying at the same time. "Pitiful thing, you can't kill me," the monster mocked. Its body, which had been cut open, once again closed and returned to its original state. On the other hand, the Iron Man armor's left arm turned into molten iron and was completely melted by the black flames. However, a huge cannon was immediately assembled from his body and installed in the original position of his arm. Dong! 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 The cannons continued to fire. The monster screamed as it was beaten. It could not help but flee into the depths of the darkness, and for a while, no one knew where it went. Only the steel armor was left hovering in the air, vigilantly, in a defensive stance. "Was it you who dodged the black flame?" Gu Qingshan asked. Su Share's hands were quickly adjusting various parameters, adjusting the angle of the cannon, and shook her head. "It's not me. Pay attention. It's circling around, ready to pounce at any moment." Gu Qingshan controlled her sword and prepared to receive the enemy. However, he was a little hesitant. What kind of power was it that caused the armor to deviate from its original position? Otherwise, that ball of black fire would have caused even greater damage. At this point, everyone who was standing on the black staircase also stopped moving. Hayden loudly shouted, "Listen up, if that metal giant is defeated, none of us will be able to escape. Show me whatever tricks you have up your sleeves." Guyan shook his head. "Most of our abilities are destructive, but that monster will be able to recover from any damage. Our attacks are useless." Hayden glanced at his subordinates and felt a bit helpless. Indeed, if they can't find the monster's weakness, no matter how powerful their skills are, they won't be able to do anything to it. Ah! A burst of laughter resounded. There's still someone who can laugh at a time like this? Everyone turned to the source of the laughter, only to see Sha Chong's entire body was trembling, apparently trying very hard to hold back his laughter. "What's the matter?" Guyan asked. "It's nothing," Sha Chong waved his hand dismissively. "I just feel like it's finally time for me to display my true strength as a true expert," he shouted. "All subordinates who love and care for me, come." The evil creatures quickly ran towards him. While he let go of the handrail on the staircase, he quickly returned to the tracks. During this process, all the evil creatures had fused into his body. He was growing larger and larger until his body was comparable to the metal giant and the black flame monster. A few moments later, a gigantic evil creature covered in purgatory flames appeared on the tracks, exuding an indescribable sense of dignity and power. Roar! The gigantic evil creature let out a resounding roar. It was like a cluster of flames, like the sun, possessing the power to burn everything. Guyan couldn't help but exclaim. It used this ability before. How did it suddenly become so powerful? Hayesden replied, I feel like I've seen this evil creature somewhere before. He turned to a white-haired subordinate behind him. The subordinate immediately replied, Your Majesty, this is the legendary creator of Purgatory, the first evil creature of the void, possessing unimaginable power. The first evil creature? Everyone felt a sense of respect. Gu Qingshan and Su Sher also noticed the changes on the tracks. Rows of corresponding data appeared on the mech armor, analyzing the power of the creator of Purgatory. How powerful! Su Sher exclaimed in shock. That's right, Gu Qingshan praised. Such legendary power. If he had used it earlier, we wouldn't be in such a sorry state. While they were talking, the monster covered in black flames also appeared from the void of space. The monster silently hovered in the air, cautiously observing the creator of Purgatory. There's a chance. We need to quickly analyze it. Gu Qingshan said. Su Sher replied. The two of them quickly operated the mech armor's analysis system. The various sensors were all locked onto the monster, fully focusing on receiving the monster's power. I need 10 seconds to complete the analysis. Su Sher told them. Gu Qingshan's gaze fell onto the creator of Purgatory, pressed a button, and whispered, Sha Chong, I need information. Stall it for 10 seconds before killing it. The creator of Purgatory was surprised. It clenched its fists tightly and laughed in a frenzy. Come trash, die. To be able to die in my hands. You should feel extremely honored. Ever since I created Purgatory, it has been a long time since I last appeared. Perhaps you have all forgotten my power. The power from its body spread in all directions, causing the void of space itself to tremble. Woo 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 woo. The creator of Purgatory was still howling. Its power grew stronger and stronger, until it reached a point where everyone was shocked. 10 seconds had passed. Sha Chong, you can kill it now, Gu Qingshan said. He turned to the analysis device. A small line of text appeared as the conclusion, frowny face, black flame, venerable, soul manifestation, Samsara's wraith. Soul manifestation is a unique form of existence, capable of separating itself from the body and possessing the same power as the body. Gu Qingshan was shocked. So it's a wraith. Compared to the wraiths of my homeworld, it's completely different. No wonder I didn't recognize it. But then, why is it a soul manifestation? Where's its body? Gu Qingshan's thoughts quickly turned as she said, Sha Chong, it's a soul manifestation wraith. Immediately, the creator of Purgatory received the message from Gu Qingshan's brainwave. The creator of Purgatory's expression changed, displayed a cold grin, and growled. Death is coming, soul manifestation bastard. Do you really think a soul can't be killed? The monster trembled. It abruptly turned around and quickly flew away, disappearing from everyone's sight in the blink of an eye. It ran away. Oomph. Coward, you're fast. The creator of Purgatory roared regretfully. Everyone cheered again. With such power, what was there to fear from the monster? They could simply fight their way through. The giant metal armor also descended from the sky and turned back into a train. Gu Qingshan and Su Sher came out. Say, if I knew you were this strong, I wouldn't have bothered. Gu Qingshan smiled. Hayesden and Guyan also arrived, looking at the creator of Purgatory with reverence. Who would have thought? Sha Chong actually had such a powerful trump card up his sleeve. From now on, who would dare to call him a fool? The creator of Purgatory gave off an air of solemnity and vicissitude, scornfully glanced at the direction where the monster went, and loudly declared, Don't let me see you again, or I'll beat you up every time I see you. Its body slowly shrank until it scattered into several dozen evil creatures. Sha Chong once again appeared in front of everyone. It walked in front of Gu Qingshan and whispered, "Not good. That big boss transformation skill just now was fake. I can only use my presence and power fluctuations to scare people. I can't actually fight." Gu Qingshan scowled. Sha Chong continued, "Every time I transform into a big boss, I'll have to fall asleep for a while. So if there's a real battle, I'll have to rely on you." Thud. Sha Chong collapsed. It had fallen asleep. Everyone couldn't react in time. A few seconds of silence. The sound of snoring, followed by the sound of teeth grinding. "Then should we just leave it here?" Guyan begrudgingly asked. "I can understand how you feel, but it really did save everyone just now," Hayesden replied. Gu Qingshan sighed and replied, "Just now its presence was too overwhelming. Not only did it scare away that monster, there probably won't be any other monsters trying to mess with us for the time being. Let's take this chance and leave quickly." Chapter 1149. Oh, rumble, rumble, rumble. The train continued to move forward in the darkness. Deep underground, there were countless tracks, all of which were built by the Starlight Empire. Gu Qingshan understood the entire structure and function of the Starlight Empire's train. Su Sher, on the other hand, knew the way forward through the star chart. The two of them worked together to steer the train, constantly changing tracks in the darkness as they headed towards the direction indicated by the star chart. A night passed just like that. The train continued to move forward without stopping, but both of them were feeling a bit tired. Both of them were now normal people. After walking for over half a day, fighting against the monsters, and controlling the train for the entire night, they were already tired. "Qingshan, I'll drive. You rest for a bit," Su Sher said. Gu Qingshan smiled helplessly and said, "Let's wait a bit longer." Around 6 a.m., "The train will change form." Su Sher recalled the direction on the star chart and said, "That's true. There's no more tracks after that. It's just a void of darkness. How do you intend to get there?" "Turn into a ship. Hayesden and Guyan both know how to pilot a ship. Leave the rest to them." Saying so, Gu Qingshan quickly operated the control panel. The train's speed gradually slowed down. When the tracks completely disappeared, the train flew into the air and slowly turned into a metal ship. "I've rested enough." Hayesden's figure appeared in the cockpit. "It's our turn now." Guyan also came in and said, "You two should quickly get some rest. We don't know what's going to happen next. So make sure to maintain your stamina." Gu Qingshan and Su Sher then left the cockpit and returned to the resting area. Hayesden's subordinates were already waiting here. "Two esteemed allies, please come this way." One of the subordinates bowed slightly and said. Gu Qingshan and Su Sher were led to the dining car, where a sumptuous breakfast had already been prepared for them. While eating, Sha Chong was woken up by the smell of food, then went back to sleep after eating for a bit. "This fiend is very unique," Gu Qingshan commented. It's very strong, and it's loved and respected by its subordinates." "It really is something," Su Sher said. Gu Qingshan recalled the previous incident and asked again, when we were piloting our mech to fight, we suddenly shifted our position, and that's how we managed to avoid the black flames." "Did you really not do anything at that time?" Su Sher laughed and said, "Yes, I didn't move at all. Are you still worried about this matter?" "Yes, I don't think it's a coincidence. Mechas are highly sophisticated weapons of war. They won't move without orders." Gu Qingshan pondered, then suddenly asked, "Super space-time weapon, was it you who controlled the mech?" An electronic voice resounded. "It wasn't me. I'm currently changing my form, so I don't have the time to do such a thing." In that case, there was no way to find a reason. Could it really be a coincidence? Gu Qingshan's mind was racing. He suddenly took out a small piece of bone and examined it carefully. This was the piece of bone that contained the pixie's corpse before. As soon as he opened it, the pixie's corpse crumbled away. Looking at this piece of bone, Su Sher also recalled what happened at the time. She curiously asked, "Qingshan, you said that you can tell how soft or hard a bone is when you hold it in your hand. Is that true?" Gu Qingshan observed the bone in his hand and absent-mindedly replied, "That's right, I can." Su Sher blushed, lightly held Gu Qingshan's hand, then whispered, "Then take a look at my hand." Is it hard or soft? Perhaps I've been fighting so much that my fingers have become rough. Gu Shan lightly squeezed her hand, then her arm, and spoke with a serious expression. Your hand and arm are too soft without any muscles, so you won't be able to fight for long. Furthermore, you haven't received any resistance training, so your skin is too soft, which will only increase your sensitivity to pain, which won't be beneficial for fighting. Su Cher was stunned. Gu Shan's tone changed and continued. That's strange. I remember that you've learned a few martial arts in the past. Your Su family's martial arts were quite famous in the Federation, and you're a young lady. I also know a martial arts secret art, crane palm, but I haven't practiced it for a long time, so I'm a bit rusty. Su Cher chuckled. Gu Shan was surprised, so that's why. But it doesn't matter. I have a few training methods here. I'll teach them to you when we return. You just need to practice them for a while and slowly find the feeling you had in the past in martial arts. Seeing how serious he was, Su Cher's mind went through a myriad of thoughts, then suddenly smiled. I don't need to learn martial arts anymore because I'm a card user now. I could just use cards to fight. Her face went red again, her voice as tiny as an ant's. Qing Shan, can you help me look at the other parts of my body to see if they're also not suitable for martial arts? Gu Shan waved his hand dismissively and spoke with a serious expression. As they say, I only need to touch your hands and arms to understand your situation. In truth, your foundation in martial arts is quite good. I remember that your martial arts were the best among your peers in the past. That's a bit unfortunate. I've also recently obtained a martial scripture. It's a scripture that a martial grandmaster from the bygone era taught me. How about I give it to you as well, and you can practice it? Gu Shan carefully explained. I heard that even reading this martial scripture once would cause an unimaginable seed of martial power to take root in your body. Although I'm a sword cultivator, every time I read it, my understanding of power and understanding of martial arts would increase. So you must treasure this martial arts scripture. Su Cher was stunned. This isn't what I thought it would be, but it's also a bit warm. This is true warmth. Su Cher's gaze softened and softly asked, what kind of martial scripture is it? Gu Shan paused. When Lin taught him this martial scripture, she didn't say much, so he didn't even know its name. But this martial scripture is truly useful. It's a great help to one's cultivation, to the point where he once asked Lin if he could promote this martial scripture and teach it to someone else. At the time, Lin didn't mind and told him to do as he pleased. That's why this is happening right now. As for the martial scripture's name, I'm not sure either. The person who taught it to me didn't tell me in detail. I'll read it to you now. Make sure you remember it well. Gu Shan recited the martial scripture word by word, waited for Su Cher to memorize it, then told her about his understanding of it paragraph by paragraph. Su Cher curiously asked, when do you usually recite this scripture? Doesn't it interfere with your other activities? Gu Shan truthfully replied, aside from cultivating my swordsmanship, every day when I eat, drink, talk, and do things, I would constantly recite the martial scripture in my mind. So my swordsmanship has also improved quite quickly. All right, I'll give it a try as well, but now that our powers have been stripped away. Su Cher, clench her fist. Gu Shan replied, even if you study it here, you'll still gain something in your mind. It'll help you solidify your martial arts foundation. Su Cher then closed her eyes and silently recited the martial scripture. At first, Gu Shan was still observing Su Cher, but then she noticed something. A few lines of glowing text appeared on the War God UI. Frowny face, time's up. The Omni Stone has begun to reset. You've obtained a new void ability. Demon Cat Transformation. Demon Cat Transformation. You shall turn into a true demon cat. Incantation activated. I am a cat. Gu Shan froze. Why does such an ability exist within the void? What's the point of turning into a demon cat? Gu Shan hesitated and didn't activate Demon Cat Transformation yet. Chapter 1150. But thinking about it, it's still safe on the train, so what's the point of turning into a cat now? Gu Shan quickly changed his mind and gave up on using this transformation technique. He silently looked at Su Cher, waiting for the results of her first attempt at cultivating the martial scripture. A few moments later, Su Shui'er opened her eyes and spoke in surprise. When I was chanting the martial scripture, all the martial art styles and styles I've learned before appeared in my mind. For some reason, my understanding of these styles has deepened. Gu Qingshan smiled and said, "This is only your first time. Practice a few more times, and you'll get even better results." Seeing that she had gained some tangible results, Su Shui'er focused her mind and closed her eyes to continue studying the martial scripture. Gu Qingshan stayed by her side. Time slowly passed. Gu Qingshan was getting more and more sleepy, so she leaned back on the sofa and slowly fell asleep without knowing it. In her daze, a gust of wind blew from afar. Vaguely, a voice rang in his ears. "Mine." Gu Qingshan was shocked. "Who's calling me?" He stood up and loudly asked. Nothing could be seen around him. Everything felt like the bottom of a deep lake, blurry and chaotic. Gu Qingshan was being pulled by some sort of force through countless spaces at an extreme speed, arriving at a certain unknown dark place. The voice resounded again. "Bring it to me." "And who are you?" Gu Qingshan asked. Within the darkness, streaks of light appeared. A seven-colored light. The spear. It screeched towards Gu Qingshan. Gu Qingshan abruptly opened her eyes and woke up. Indeed, the seven-colored spear, Abaddon. Who would have thought that it would be able to sense the existence of the fragment and form a connection with me in the dream? Unfortunately, I'm still on the way, far away from where the spear is. Gu Qingshan sighed and looked in front of him. He was stunned. Su Shui'er wasn't in front of him. Or rather, there was no one around. He was not on the train, but on a meadow in the forest. Gu Qingshan remained calm and stood up silently. Noisy voices rang out one after another. "Look, he's here." It really wasn't easy. We had already hinted to him, but we still had to use a spell to get it. "So what exactly are you going to tell him?" "Time is limited, get to the point." All the voices disappeared, leaving only a bouncing and cheerful voice. Young adventurer, we don't meet people easily. Even if it concerns your fate and ours, you must first guess the answer to the riddle before you can meet us." "Riddle," Gu Qingshan repeated. "That's right, a riddle. Listen carefully. He only washes his face and doesn't comb his hair. He walks at night without any light, and his mustache curls upwards. Well, go back and guess at your leisure. If you guess in an hour, look out of the train window. If you can't guess it, you'll never see us again." While Gu Qingshan was confused, he was suddenly pushed and fell into the abyss. He opened his eyes abruptly and woke up. Rumble, 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 rumble. Oh, oh, oh. The train was still moving forward. Su Shui'er was sitting across from him, her eyes closed as she silently chanted the martial scripture. Gu Qingshan stood up and looked around. Everyone in the carriage was resting. He looked out of the window of the train, but it was pitch black, and he could see nothing. Gu Qingshan squeezed his hand. The pain came very quickly. Basically, I had two dreams. The first was the call of Abaddon. The second was a riddle. Gu Qingshan muttered to himself. He could be considered a person who's been through a lot, but what he was seeing right now was a bit too bizarre. He had only experienced one thing related to dreams. The age of old. Xie Dao Ling's dream. Gu Qingshan silently thought for a bit, then patted Su Shui'er's shoulder. "What is it?" Su Shui'er opened his eyes and asked. "There's something that I need your help with," Gu Qingshan pondered and said. Su Shui'er immediately became anxious. She took the blood sea card and asked in a low voice, "What happened?" Gu Qingshan shook his head. "I don't know what happened either. Someone asked me to guess a riddle in my dream." Su Shui'er silently looked at him, then reached her hand out to touch his forehead. His temperature was normal. "What riddle?" Su Shui'er pulled her hand back and asked. "Only washing face, not combing hair, walking at night without light, mustache sticking up, isn't that a cat?" "That's right, such a simple riddle. They're purposely going easy on me." Gu Qingshan's gaze returned to the war god UI, stopping at the skill she just obtained. Demon Cat Transformation. This is the only skill I can use to communicate with cats. Did someone influence the Omni Stone and activate it to create this skill? For some reason, Gu Qingshan suddenly recalled the power that pushed him away during his battle against the Black Flame Venerable. What exactly is going to happen? Gu Qingshan made up her mind and said, Shui Er, I'm going to start. Make sure to protect me. What are you doing? Turning into a cat. Saying so, Gu Qingshan chanted an incantation. I'm a cat. As soon as he said so, he quickly shrank and turned into a cute tabby cat. Su Cher was stunned, then exclaimed in a low voice, Whoa, Qingshan, why do you have such a cute skill? She hugged the tabby cat in her arms and happily smiled. Who would have thought Gu Qingshan was such a cutie? I definitely won't let you go. A few moments later, meow, 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 meow. The tabby cat hurriedly called out. It was now that Su Cher noticed that she was using too much strength that she couldn't even see the cat anymore. So she hurriedly lifted him up. The tabby cat breathed heavily a few times to restore oxygen to his brain. Su Cher said apologetically, I'm sorry, I like cats, so I've been raising cats for a while now. The tabby cat waved his paw to show that he didn't mind. He moved around a bit, then showed a contemplative look in his eyes and called out, Meow, meow, meow. Su Cher panicked. It's over. I don't understand cat language. Can you speak Chinese? She hurriedly asked. The tabby cat rubbed his forehead with his paw, then pointed at the window of the train. This time, Su Cher understood. She carried the tabby cat to the window and asked, You want to look outside? The tabby cat nodded. Su Cher raised him up and pressed him against the window. The tabby cat struggled a bit and retreated a bit. I'm sorry. I was too close, Su Cher blushed. She adjusted her posture again. This time, the tabby cat was able to look outside without any worries. He looked at the darkness outside the window, but his eyes were reflecting a different kind of light. As if it had seen something too shocking, the big tabby cat's body suddenly shook violently. Peed? It's over. It's over, Su Cher muttered to herself. As soon as she said that, she regretted it and couldn't help but slap herself to remind herself. No. This isn't my cat, it's Gu Qingshan. The tabby cat turned to look at her, then pointed at the cockpit with his paw. Su Cher asked, To the cockpit? The tabby cat nodded. Su Cher then carried the tabby cat to the cockpit. Hayesden and Guyan were piloting the ship. In truth, the flight path had already been adjusted. The two of them were only staying here to stay alert to avoid any unexpected situations. When Su Cher came in, the two of them were looking at something. Their faces were filled with caution and vigilance. As soon as he saw Su Cher, Hayesden gave her something and said, Ask Gu Qingshan, what's going on with this? Guyan added, Because after he gained the identity of the secret dance last time, we immediately performed a strange dance. So now that he has another identity, we can't help but be a bit more serious. Su Shui received it in confusion and took a look. So it's an alliance contract. On the four-person alliance contract, Gu Qingshan's identity had indeed changed. Frowny-faced dragon slayer of the age of old, mortal enemy of the deity of chaos, devil king of Huangquan, wielder of heaven and earth, ally of the eternal abyss, demon king and cherub of condemnation, the man with the best kissing technique in the world, experienced performer, big tabby cat Gu Qingshan, hereby signed the alliance contract. Chapter 1151. Meow, 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 meow. Meow, meow, meow. The big tabby cat pointed at the various instruments and called out to everyone. Hayesden wiped the sweat off his forehead and asked, Do any of you understand cat language? Guyan replied, I don't have such a talent, Su Cher replied. Then we can only ask Sha Chong. I remember reading that because evil creatures have to enter various worlds, they were born with the ability to understand languages. A few moments later, Sha Chong was called in. He turned into a cat. Sha Chong was surprised. All right, us evil creatures do understand the languages of various races. I'll talk to him, little kitty. No. Gu Qingshan, what do you want to say? The big tabby cat explained. Meow, 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 meow. Hearing that, Sha Chong told everyone. He said that we need to change our course and head towards the underground command center. The underground command center, Su Shui carefully thought about it and quickly found the appropriate route. The so-called Underground Command Center was a technological command center established by the Starlight Empire when the Inner Plane first explored this place. It wasn't just the Starlight Empire, The various organizations and organizations of the inner plane had also established their own forces in the secret passage to explore the dusty world. These addresses and routes were all recorded in the star chart, hidden in Sue Cher's memories. Sue Cher put the tabby cat on the table and quickly operated the instruments. The metal ship slowed down in the darkness and began to slowly descend. A few moments later, the tabby cat looked out the window and called out again, "Meow, meow, 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 meow." Sha Chong replied. He said to fly forward to the right in 3 minutes. Heading toward the reserve base, everyone was surprised. They changed direction just like that? The reserve base? I'll change course right away. Sue Cher began to adjust the ship's flight path. About 10 minutes later, the tabby cat called out again. "Meow, meow, meow. Meow, meow, meow." He said to fly towards the World Research Center. I'll change it again. Now fly towards the Mech Center, to the Mystical Research Department, to the Vanguard. Change direction, to the Teleportation Tower. Wait a minute. Change direction again, to the Cave of Corpses. Sue Cher was constantly changing directions. Although no one said anything, they were all astonished. Where exactly is Gu Qing flying to? Fortunately, everyone had signed an alliance contract with each other. In addition, during the battle with the Dark Lord, Gu Qing had piloted the giant mobile mech and blocked the attack for everyone. So even though everyone had doubts in their hearts, they still believed in him. What they didn't know was that in Gu Qingshan's eyes, the world was a different story. In the dark and deep void, countless tiny, luminous bodies floated quietly, looking like countless fireflies gathered together. When the spaceship flew, these luminous bodies followed the spaceship and moved forward. Every time they flew a certain distance, all the tiny glowing objects would form lines of text. Combat Readiness Storage Base, World Research Institute, Mecha Center, Mystical Investigation Department, Vanguard Camp, Transport Tower, Wreckage Cave. Every so often, these glowing objects would change in the darkness, forming new words, guiding the spaceship to the next location. Gu Qingshan pondered as she led the way. Why don't I turn into a cat in order to see these glowing objects? After the spaceship entered this cave, it began to descend. According to the annotations on the spaceship, this was the place where the Starlight Empire searched for various strange remains. It was located at the very bottom of the secret passage, a large, empty underground cave. Ever since Renedal betrayed the deities over 100 million years ago, the myriad deities fell, and the secret passage was cursed and sealed, turning this place into an empty cave of darkness. Gu Qingshan led everyone out of the spaceship. "It's so dark here, there's nothing at all," Sha Chong muttered. "That's right, everyone stay alert," Guyan replied. Gu Qingshan's eyes, however, were different from the others. He was currently a cat. He saw countless glowing objects forming a sea of light in the cave. "Meow, meow, meow," Gu Qingshan called out. "He told us to wait here," Sha Chong replied. Gu Qingshan struggled a bit in Sue Cher's arms, then jumped down. He ran forward and jumped onto a large rock. A few moments later, among the countless glowing objects, the brightest one descended and hovered in front of him. The light slowly faded to reveal a long-bearded old man about the size of a thumb. "Very good. You've finally guessed the answer to our riddle and obtained the qualifications to talk to us," the long-bearded old man praised the tabby cat. The tabby cat pointed at the group behind him and asked, "Meow, meow, 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 meow." "That's right. All of you have been stripped of your powers by the oath, so you can't see us," the long-bearded old man replied. The tabby cat pointed at himself with his paw and asked, "Meow, meow, meow." The long-bearded old man chuckled. "You've turned into a cat, so of course you can see us, because cats are born with the ability to see souls." The tabby cat appeared doubtful and tilted his head. "Meow, meow, meow." "Ah, yes, we are pixies, but we're all dead. We can't not die," the long-bearded old man continued. 100 million years ago, as a race that understood mysticism the most, we pixies cooperated with the deities to research the occultism of the dusty world. One day, a war between the deities abruptly erupted. This place was cursed and completely sealed off. What made us feel even more despair was that the entire secret passage had been reinforced by the oath of the four-pillar gods, as well as many other powerful entities. Everyone was only allowed to use a single ability in this place. Originally, this oath was to ensure that no overly powerful power would disturb the dusty world and cause irreversible consequences. But after the secret passage was sealed, we were unable to leave and were bound by the oath of the four-pillar gods, so we could only barely survive in this place. As time passed, we slowly accepted this result. After all, this place was filled with a large amount of items salvaged from the dusty world, enough for us to spend our entire lives researching the power of occultism. We were perfectly satisfied with this kind of life. However, several 10,000 years ago, something was awakened in this place. Meow meow? The tabby cat asked. Ah. It was a legendary artifact of the occultism, a broken fragment of the Samso. We don't know how it was awakened, but as a fragment of a world, there were clearly countless wraiths within it, each of them extremely powerful, gradually making us unable to deal with them. At this point, the long-bearded old man's expression abruptly changed. Behind him, the spirits of the pixies began to become restless. Many of them had already begun to flee deeper into the cave. Oh no, the long-bearded old man hurriedly said. Hurry, that thing is coming. Quickly hide yourselves. We'll talk about it later. Meow, meow, meow. The long-bearded old man pointed at the ground not too far away and said, Tell your people to hide inside. The tabby cat turned to look, only to see countless unknown remains piled up on the ground, as well as a dusty painting. The long-bearded old man swung the short stick in his hand and tapped Gu Qingshan's body. Bam! Gu Qingshan returned to human form. Instantly, all the light from the fireflies disappeared without a trace. As a normal person, he could no longer see the spirits of the pixies. Gu Qingshan pointed at the painting and told the group, Let's go, some kind of monster is coming. We need to hide there. On their way here, they had run into unstoppable monsters like the giant skeletal claw and the black venerable. So the last thing they wanted to hear was the word monster. And now, as they saw Gu Qingshan turning into a tabby cat and talking to an invisible entity in the darkness, they couldn't help but feel anxious. As soon as Gu Qingshan told them that she had turned back, the group immediately moved. Isn't that a painting? How are we going to get in? Sha Chong asked. Gu Qingshan also didn't know, so she led the group to the painting. This was an ancient painting that depicted people dancing and singing around a campfire. Gu Qingshan tried walking towards the painting. A second later, his entire body vanished. Everyone was startled and looked at the painting together, only to see that Gu Qingshan had appeared on the painting, waving at them. Su Cher immediately walked towards the painting. She also appeared on the painting, holding Gu Qingshan's hand as she looked at the group. There was no doubt about that. The group quickly entered the painting. Chapter 1152. The sun was high in the sky. The earth was dry. In the middle of the desolate wilderness, there was a single altar. Numerous people were circling around the altar, dancing and singing. These people looked like they were still in the primordial era, using leaves and animal hides to hide their bodies. Most of their skin was exposed, covered with strange and primitive black runes. As they danced, these black runes would also change, giving them an indescribably eerie feeling. At this point, these people were completely immersed in their dance. They're dancing. What do we do now? Should we join them? Sha Chong asked. At this point, everyone had entered this painting to temporarily hide. Hayesden looked at Guyan and asked, You magic-type people seem to have a good understanding of paintings. What do you think we should do now? I do know a bit about it, Guyan nodded. Within the world of paintings, we need to pay attention to the overall atmosphere and content of the painting. We can't do anything that doesn't fit in. For example, in a painting of a gladiator arena, you'll either be applauding as a spectator or fighting as a gladiator. If you secretly doze off in the stands, you'll soon be kicked out of the world, Gu Qingshan asked. Then we'll have to dance inside this painting. Indeed, as long as the majority of us keep dancing and singing, the entire group won't be kicked out, Guyan replied. All was quiet. Everyone was staring at Gu Qingshan. Hayes Din, Guyan, and Su Cher spoke in unison. You don't need to dance. All right, I'll run with you. We'll sing while running. Gu Qingshan compromised. Everyone sighed in relief. Under Hayes Din, Guyan, and Sha Chong's lead, the group followed the strange people and began to dance around the altar. Su Cher stayed by Gu Qingshan's side, monitoring him to prevent him from dancing. You're also afraid that I'll dance? Gu Qingshan whispered. Su Cher was learning the dance moves of those people. She whispered, I'm not afraid. That dance made me sweat all over. It's very comfortable. It seems that my movements have become much faster. Gu Qingshan whispered, when you were dancing, your expression was very on point. Every movement was very steady, very stylish. You mean, I look good when I dance? Yes. Then why don't you just say it's nice? Because your movements are done well, you give people a sense of beauty. Believe me, I'm now a beginner in dancing, and I can tell the difference between good and bad. Gu Qingshan thought for quite a while, and then said. Su Cher glared at him. This person had already surpassed the realm of wood. It was as if steel had been smelted and forged into the appearance of wood, and then painted with a layer of brown wood paint. However, Su Cher still raised her chin, feeling a little proud in her heart. After all, it was a compliment. She lowered her voice and said, Qingshan, Su Cher was about to talk about an important topic when someone poked Gu Qingshan. Sha Chong. This fiend seemed a bit nervous, so he gestured for Gu Qingshan to look at where he was pointing. Interestingly enough, while they were dancing inside the painting, they were able to see the situation outside, only to see pale, white light slowly manifesting inside the cave of wreckage, illuminating the boundless sea of wreckage. A monster covered in a pale, white carapace silently flew in from outside the cave. Each of its arms had 7 sharp, blade-like spikes that curved behind its back in the shape of a stream. It had a bony skull with a pair of vertical pupils. At the same time, 2 ferocious monsters covered in black flames and a mouth full of sharp teeth appeared. The Black Venerable. The people hiding in the picture scrolls stiffened and quickened the pace of their dance. Don't be ridiculous. A single Black Venerable was able to fight against a Starlight mobile mech and even gain the upper hand. But these were 2 Black Venerables. What caused everyone to tremble even more was the armored monster covered in pale white flames. Because the 2 Black Venerables were standing on its left and right, and both of them were extremely respectful. 3 gigantic monsters hovered above the ruins, motionless. They seemed to be observing something. Sir, the pixies seem to be hiding even faster than before this time, as one of the Black Venerables said so. It suddenly swung its arm to unleash countless black flames that enveloped the entire ruins in a sea of flames. Gu Qingshan's group's expressions changed. The painting they were in was also caught in the sea of flames. If the painting was burned, the world inside the painting would collapse. They would either die along with the world or be ejected from it. Being ejected would also be a dead end. With their current mortal bodies, they couldn't deal with these terrifying monsters. The black flames continued to spread in every direction, burning for a while before going out. It's useless. We're too late this time. You can't burn these things, and you can't chase those pixies out, the monster with the pale white flame said. Its voice was low and full of penetrating power. Almost like a deity, the entire world could hear its voice. Hearing that, the Black Venerable quickly retracted its flames. Indeed, nothing in this ruined world was burned. Pixies are actually very easy to deal with, but they're too hard to find, the Black Venerable begrudgingly said. The monster replied, This is the pixies' life-saving ability. As long as they want to hide, no living being would be able to find them. The 2 Black Venerables went silent. The monster then changed the topic and said, Don't worry, after several 10,000 years, we will soon be able to put an end to our relationship with the pixies, sir. You mean to say? Those guests, the monster casually said. They came from a true fragment of Huang Quan. So dealing with souls is their specialty. The pixies are now souls. No matter how good they are at hiding against the power of Huang Quan, they can only fall into it. The monster suddenly laughed and spoke with a cruel tone. Our Wraith realm possesses unparalleled fighting prowess, while the Huang Quan realm possesses the ability to control death and the dead. Once we reach an agreement, no one in this world would be able to stop us. Don't be hasty. The end of these pixies will soon come. The monster turned around and flew out of the cave. The two black venerables followed closely behind. A few moments later, they left. The world full of corpses was once again shrouded in darkness and silence. Inside the painting, everyone had been paying close attention to the situation outside. It was only after the monsters left that they sighed in relief. Hayes Den pondered, are the Wraith realm and Huang Quan realm really that powerful? I recall that the Mystic Zones also had a samsara, but I've never heard of such terrifying monsters before. Everyone nodded. Gu Shan thought for a bit, then said, the one in the Mystic Zones was an imitation of the samsara, so I'm guessing that those monsters just now were the real samsara. There's an imitation? Hayes Den was surprised. That's right, Gu Shan replied. He then explained the divine race's creation of the world. Everyone was shaken. What do we do now? Guyan asked. Let's go out first. The pixies must have a reason for luring me here. Let's wait and see, Gu Shan said. Everyone nodded. It's safe outside as long as we don't dance or sing. We'll be able to leave, Guyan said. Thereupon they all came out of the primitive dance and stood to one side. A few moments later, everyone was kicked out of the painting world. As soon as they left, the group of strange people stopped. One of them asked in a low voice, was it the sacrificial dance? Another replied. That's right, another added. I also sensed the fourth asked, what now? The fifth replied, I'll go inform them. The rest of you keep an eye on him. Got it. The fifth quickly ran to the edge of the painting and disappeared in a single leap. The others also formed a strange hand seal. The scroll silently rolled itself up into the void of space, turned invisible, and silently seeped into Gu Shan's clothes, sticking to his arm and forming a tattoo-like pattern. Everyone outside the painting didn't notice. Gu Shan also didn't notice. His attention was focused on the Omni Stone. An hour had passed. The Omni Stone skill was about to be refreshed. If I can't turn into a cat, I won't be able to see the pixies. What should I do? All of a sudden, a few lines of glowing text appeared on the War God UI. Frowny face, time's up. The Omni Stone has begun to reset. You've obtained a new void ability. Demon Cat Transformation. Demon Cat Transformation. You shall turn into a true demon cat. Incantation. My home is a cat. It's still the same technique. Gu Shan immediately understood. This was definitely the pixies' doing. Assuming that the pixies had returned, Gu Shan chanted the incantation. My home is a cat. As soon as he said so, he turned into a jet black cat. Gu Shan looked at the color of his fur and muttered in confusion. Whoa, a black cat! Su Cher happily exclaimed. There was a hint of enthusiasm in her voice. Gu Shan raised his black paws in front of his face and doubtfully muttered, Meow, meow, meow. Aha! This is because you're becoming more and more nervous, ready to fight at any moment and prepared for any situation. So your quipcraft has also changed. This is where the mystery of quipcraft lies. The long-bearded old man appeared in front of the black cat and smiled. Chapter 1153. Within the darkness, there was a sense of terror. The king of the Wraith realm, Mara, heavenly king, standing in the void of space, its body was as large as Mount Sumeru, connecting heaven and earth. Wraiths of all shapes and sizes surrounded it, densely packed and distributed within a radius of several thousand miles. All wraiths were under the command of the heavenly king. At this point, several mass cultivators were led by 4 Black Flame Venerables to the Heavenly King. The Black Flame Venerables were about the same height as the 100-meter-tall Starlight mobile mech. But Mara, Heavenly King's eyes were closed. Its eyelids alone were comparable to a Black Flame Venerable. The cultivators who came from the Huang Quan fragment world were nothing more than specks of dust in front of the Wraith King. The cultivators bowed towards the Great Wraith and spoke in unison. We greet the Wraith Realm's Lord, Mara, Heavenly King. The Great Wraith, called Mara, Heavenly King, still didn't open its eyes. Its mouth was also tightly shut. but its voice resounded from the void of space. Everyone has come from afar. Forgive me for not being able to open my eyes and speak. The leading cultivator clasped his fist. Where the heavenly king's gaze reaches, all things perish. When you speak, the plague of death spreads everywhere. This humble one naturally understands this. Thank you for your benevolence. Heavenly King, satisfied. Mara, Heavenly King's voice resounded from the void of space again. As expected of a true person from the Huang Quan realm, to be able to understand my difficulties, it was not a waste of my guidance. The cultivators once again bowed. Mara, Heavenly King, continued. I heard that you've already discussed with my subordinates. Indeed, the leading cultivator replied. Very well. It seems you've all fulfilled my conditions, but I still have one last condition. Please speak, Heavenly King. Every day you must offer a world filled with living beings to me. The leading cultivator was a bit doubtful and clasped his fist. What exactly does the Heavenly King need a world for? If you can inform us beforehand, we would be able to make preparations. Mara, Heavenly King's voice resounded throughout the void of space, full of solemnity. The birth and destruction of the infinite worlds are all fabricated. Only by me will there be bliss with that. All the wraiths and monsters within several thousand miles prostrated themselves in the void of space, worshipping Mara, Heavenly King. The cultivators didn't say anything, but quite a few of them began to tremble. The cultivator in the lead was silent. Suddenly, he took out a handkerchief and wiped the sweat from the back of his neck. Just as he wiped off the sweat, it came back again not long after. In the end, he couldn't bear it any longer and could only use the technique to wipe off the cold sweat on his back and neck. This cultivator was the leader sent by the Huang Quan realm, a man who had gone through many storms in his life and had interacted with countless powerful entities. He also held great authority in his hands, able to decide many major events of the Huang Quan realm with a single word. However, he still didn't dare to agree to Heavenly King Mara's request. Every day, it would destroy a world full of living beings for its own amusement. The Huang Quan Pass fragment world was incredibly powerful, able to restrain millions of worlds as its own supply. However, every day, billions of lives would be destroyed, and even entire worlds would be destroyed. Such deep and pure malice completely surpassed the imagination of cultivators. The leading cultivator forced himself to calm down and respectfully cupped his fists. This is a serious matter, so I have to report it first. Please wait for a moment, Heavenly King. Heavenly King Mara gently replied. It is fine. I'm not a person who goes too far. Report this to your superiors. The cultivator then took out a purple talisman, muttered a few words, and infused the talisman with spirit energy. The talisman turned into a purple dragon that quickly disappeared into the void of space. Heavenly King Mara continued. It will probably take some time to wait for a reply. How about you take this chance to do what you promised me first? The cultivator pondered a bit and asked, the entities that Heavenly King mentioned, are they all souls? That's right. Their strongest point is hiding. Once they hide, my subordinates wouldn't be able to find them. It's a huge headache. The cultivator clasped his fist. Don't worry, Heavenly King. We will definitely resolve your worries. Heavenly King Mara laughed. Very well, kill them all. It would be even better if you can capture them and bring them back to worship me. I like to consume such souls as you wish, Heavenly King, at another location. The Cave of Corpses. The long-bearded old man was talking to the black cat. Little cat, you finally appeared. Let me tell you about what happened in the past. The black cat clasped her paws. Meow, the long-bearded old man continued. In the past, when we first began to explore the dusty world, the deities felt deeply uneasy because if too much power were to be unleashed, it would alarm the dusty world. In that world, there were things that caused even the inner plane, the void, and other mysterious places to feel fear. Because of that, the deities swore a vow not to unleash any violent power within the passage leading to the dusty world. Meow, meow, meow. Were there any exceptions? Haha, originally I couldn't tell you, But since it's come to this, there's no harm in telling you, when the deities swore the binding vow, I was sitting on the shoulder of a certain lady, flattering her. When the vow of the four pillar gods was released, that lady happened to glance at me, and suddenly shed tears. She took out an item and gave it to the guardian statues of the four pillar gods, then told me that if one day someone brought that item to us, it would represent a certain hope of the pixies. The black cat perked up her ears and called out in interest. Meow, meow, meow. You're asking about that lady's identity? She is the queen of the elemental fairies, the controller of time, the undying sand, the legendary lady, the long-bearded old man replied. Meow. After countless years of waiting, we finally discovered that someone had brought that item here. The black cat pointed at herself with her paw. Meow, meow. Meow, meow, meow. Yes, you, and the Omni Stone. Meow, 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 the black cat muttered to herself. The long-bearded old man continued. I've already begun to sense a fate even more terrifying than death. As soon as I saw you, I understood that you and the Omni Stone are our final hope. The old man suddenly became anxious and continued. Listen, I'm sure you've already sensed it. Both you and us will soon be captured and killed. Our souls will also suffer eternal torment. Perhaps in 10 minutes, perhaps in an hour, that will happen. Kitty, if I tell you the incantation to activate the Omni Stone, would you accept us into your group? Would you be willing to fight alongside us? In truth, cooperation is the only way for both you and us to survive. Meow. The black cat solemnly nodded. Very well, then listen carefully. The incantation that the lady left behind is the sands of time. No living being can't grasp it. Scatter all O's in nothingness. Hearing that, the black cat slowly turned back in her human form and Gu Qingshan's appearance. He held the Omni Stone in hand and muttered, the sands of time, no living being can't grasp it. Scatter all O's in nothingness. Boom. Everything around them disappeared. Gu Qingshan found herself standing in the middle of a sea of quicksand. Standing across from him was a mature woman with a graceful bearing. The undying sand, the legendary lady, Fusey. Compared to 100 million years later, she appeared much younger. Fusey looked at Gu Qingshan, but her eyes seemed to be staring at nothing. Time is too long. Fate is too chaotic, so I can't see your appearance clearly. The one who came later, listen carefully. Within an hour, both you and the pixie will die within the samsara, never to be seen again. Before the oath of the four pillar gods, I can't do too much, but I've decided to fight for a chance of survival for you. Chapter 1154. The Elf of Time stood in the sea of sand and held up the Omni Stone. In the past, in order to ensure that the dusty world would not be disturbed, the four righteous gods set up the deprivation oath. When the oath was completed, I unintentionally looked down upon time. I saw something leave the dusty world. It had been lurking in the secret passage for countless years. It only activated on its own when it was sure that the surroundings were safe. The divine artifact of the samsara, one of the two lords of the Wraith realm, the Wraith artifact spirit, Mara, heavenly king. Because souls and living things cannot affect the dusty world, the oath of the four gods can only deprive all living beings of their power, but cannot affect a samsara divine weapon like Heavenly King Mara. Mara, Heavenly King, killed every living being in the secret passage, except for the fairies who were good at hiding. After 100 million years, Renidal's curse will be completely eliminated. Heavenly King Mara took advantage of the moment when the curse was at its weakest to open a crack in the secret passage, and through that crack, he called for like-minded people from the infinite worlds. Once the curse is completely dispelled, Heavenly King Mara will welcome a group of guests and borrow their power to completely eliminate the pixies. After hundreds of millions of years, I can only see some fragments of the long passage of time. I don't know what Heavenly King Mara wants to do, but I hope that you and the fox can both survive. The Omni Stone started burning. The Fairy of Time's gaze shifted and landed on Gu Qingshan. She gazed at Gu Qingshan with a sorrowful expression. Stranger of the future, I am unable to release the oath of the four gods. I can only do what I can. Now, Put your hand on the Omni Stone. It will release your 2 skills. I don't know if this will help, but it's the only thing I can do. I hope you can change your fate and that of the fairies." After the Fairy of Time finished speaking, her entire body turned into sand and disappeared. Only the burning Omni Stone was still floating in front of Gu Shan. Gu Shan gazed at the Omni Stone in silence. 2 skills. Just by awakening 2 skills, he wanted to deal with the cultivators from the Yellow Springs Path and even Mara, Heavenly King. This was truly a meager effort. However, it was already very impressive for the Lady of Time to be able to do this after hundreds of millions of years. Gu Shan shook her head and sighed. If he had enough soul power, then Rahu's Sun Moon / and Earth Choice were both mandatory skills. Gu Shan looked at her soul points. Remaining soul points, 0/600. His soul power had been completely stripped away. Even if he could use soul points when using skills, he had spent almost all of his soul points to learn the Azura Divine skill. So he only had around 10,000 soul points left, which was nowhere near enough to compete with Rahu, Sun Moon / and Earth Choice. TSK. So how should he choose? Could it be that by choosing 2 skills, he would be able to change the situation? They were facing powerful enemies from both the Huang Quan realm and the Wraith realm, so there was no way they could win this war by themselves. Gu Shan fell in a deep thought. After he turned into a human, he could no longer see the fairies. The others walked up. "How did it go with the pixies?" Guyan asked. "The monsters that tried to kill us before. They've found help and will soon come looking for us," Gu Shan muttered. "What?" Everyone exclaimed in shock. Hayesden turned around and said, "Men, use your divination technique to observe the situation." Understood. One of his subordinates came forward and handed each blank card to everyone. When everyone had the same blank card in their hands, he abruptly shouted, "Divination!" As his voice fell, all the blank cards were dyed pitch black. "Your Majesty, we will be completely wiped out," he reported. Hayesden exchanged glances with Guyan and Sha Chong. Guyan pointed behind him. One of his subordinates stepped forward. He tossed a cluster of flames into the air, waited until the flames slowly expanded, then chanted an incantation. Within the flames, a figure gradually appeared. A group of masked cultivators were flying at full speed through the dark void of space. Around them, an overwhelming horde of monsters was approaching. Everyone saw several dozen black flame venerables. Among the horde of monsters, they didn't seem to be the strongest. "There's no way to fight them," the subordinate loudly reported. "Sir Ruler, they're over 2,000 miles away from us. They're quickly approaching." Guyan spoke with a heavy tone. "I understand. Wait a minute, aren't the pixies here? Our abilities have been restricted. So, does the pixies have a way to win against these guys?" Sha Chong asked. "We can't. The pixies are still hoping that we can help," Gu Shan replied. His mind quickly turned. "We don't have much time." Gu Shan turned to Su Cher. "You have the star chart. See if there's any place we can hide or defend against." Su Cher thought for a bit and replied, "The destination of the star chart is in no man's land. It's marked as a hidden military base of the Empire. The star chart says that unless I get there, no one would be able to find that place." "Very well. Then we'll go there." Gu Shan nodded and turned back into the Black Cat. He spoke to the long-bearded old man in cat language. "The enemy is coming. You have to come with us." "No problem," the old man replied. Gu Shan looked at him, then at the sea of light behind him. "That's the souls of countless pixies." Gu Shan asked, "How is your fighting prowess?" The old man glared at her and said, "Don't look down on us. Other than the strongest wraith, we're not afraid of any other monsters." Gu Shan immediately replied, "That's good. Quickly gather your people and follow our ship. We're leaving right away," the old man asked. "How do we maintain communication?" Gu Shan replied, "Do you have any way to make us see you?" The old man took out a slingshot made from a green tree branch and replied, "Although we're souls, we can take out our scepters and hold them in our hands. That way you'll know where we're going." "Is that also a scepter?" Gu Shan asked. "Of course, this is the enhanced version of the dual-pronged scepter." The long-bearded old man raised the slingshot up high, so that Gu Shan could see it more clearly. "Ha! Very well, we should retreat now," Gu Shan said. Saying so, Gu Shan turned back into human form and told everyone, "Go." Immediately, everyone boarded the ship. Everyone hurriedly boarded the ship. Boom! The ship took off from the ground, left the cave, and headed into the darkness of space. The cave of wreckage returned to silence. Not too long after, a group of masked cultivators appeared here. Around them, countless monsters appeared. "Do those pixies like to hide in places like this?" the leading cultivator asked. One of the Black Flame Venerables replied, "Not only that, the ants that followed you here are also with the pixies." The leading cultivator paused briefly, then spoke with an indiscernible tone. "If that's the case, then let's deal with them all at once," the Black Flame Venerable asked. "Your Excellency means," the cultivator replied, "the Heavenly King likes to eat such souls, so I'll capture them all and give them to the Heavenly King. As for the ants, they'll be your food," seeing how confident he was, the Black Flame Venerable was overjoyed. "Thank you very much, Your Excellency," another monster sighed. "To think that our esteemed guests were able to do such a thing. We normally couldn't even find their traces." The leading cultivator slowly drew his hands from his sleeves and began to form a hand seal. He casually said, "By borrowing the power of the Huang Quan Devil King, we can naturally restrain all dead souls after death. This is common knowledge in our world." While saying so, he infused his spirit energy into his hand seal and completed the spell. "Huang Quan borrowing, Devil King Warden bind." The cultivator shouted, "Go!" In a split second, a faint yellow light radiated from the cultivator's body and quickly spread throughout the entire cave. Silence. Complete silence. Nothing appeared. Then, "Your Excellency, where are the pixies' souls?" the Black Flame Venerable asked in confusion. The masked cultivator was stunned. A few moments later, he retracted the spell and gloomily spoke. "There are no pixies' souls here, not even a single one. None?" The Black Flame Venerable was surprised. It wasn't sure if the other party was lying or not. All of a sudden, a bird made entirely of bones flew in from outside the cave and spoke in human language. "Report. The pixies are running away. The pixies are running away." The Black Flame Venerable immediately asked, "Did you see where they ran to?" The bone bird replied, "Don't worry, sir. My brothers are following them from afar." The Black Flame Venerable turned to the masked cultivator. The masked cultivator said, "What are we waiting for? Let's quickly chase after them. I must capture these souls today and offer them to the Heavenly King." Chapter 1155. The Starlight ship was quickly moving forward in the darkness. The dazzling sparks followed the spaceship all the way. In the boundless darkness of space, the ship and the sparks of light had fused into one, like a shooting star. Inside the ship, everyone stared closely at the sparks of light. "So these are the sparks from the Pixie Scepter?" Hayes Den asked. "That's right, they're coming with us. Otherwise, they would only die if they stayed behind," Gu Shan replied. He and Su Sher were piloting the ship together, heading towards the destination shown on the star chart. The ship's alarm suddenly resounded. Gu Shan operated the control panel for a bit and quickly found the relevant information. A flock of bone birds were following them from afar. "We're being followed." Everyone's hearts sank. Su Sher didn't say a word and typed a long password on the screen. The control panel parted to reveal a black helmet hidden deep inside. Su Sher took out the helmet and put on. The ship's metal wings abruptly spread out at a very small angle. As the ship began to spin, hundreds of blinding beams of light shot out from the ship into the darkness behind it. The flock of bone birds that were following them were hit by the beams of light and exploded into fireworks. On the screen, all the bone birds had been wiped out. But the alarm didn't stop. "My God, what is this?" Sha Chong's voice resounded. On the screen, a gigantic skeletal claw was slowly rising up from below the ship, trying to grab it. This skeletal claw was similar to the one in the secret passage, but it was several times larger. In front of this skeletal claw, the metal ship was barely able to hold on. Several hundred beams of light pierced through the darkness and struck the skeletal claw. Even though the beams of light continued to strike the skeletal claw, it didn't slow down at all. "Let me," Guyan shouted. He placed his hand on the floor of the ship and abruptly activated his only ability. A blinding phoenix appeared below the ship. The phoenix was incredibly lifelike, spreading its wings and flew towards the skeletal claw. Boom! The phoenix crashed into the skeletal claw, causing an earth-shattering sound. The skeletal claw was struck and stopped moving in the darkness. Just as everyone heaved a sigh of relief, the spaceship's alarm suddenly became even more ear-piercing. Another giant bone claw appeared on the screen. This giant bone claw was right in front of the spaceship, waiting for it to fly over on its own. Guyan immediately said, "Don't worry, leave it to me." He activated the spell again. Below the spacecraft, two fire phoenixes appeared simultaneously. The fire phoenix flapped its wings and flew towards the giant bone claw. An even more intense explosion was heard, and even the spaceship shook for a while. The giant bone claw was blasted far away. The spaceship took advantage of the gap. Hayes spoke in a low voice. "Not good. We can't destroy it. The bone claw is catching up again." Shan quickly tapped on the control panel. The spaceship sped up again, but it did not increase its altitude. This was already the highest point. Above them was a boundless wall. The pair of bone claws were temporarily pulled away, but everyone's hearts were trembling nonstop. Shan also felt it. This time, he didn't need to look at the light screen to know that the moment of life and death had arrived. Shan abruptly shouted, "Old man, do it!" The boundless starlight outside the spaceship abruptly converged and shot a purple pillar of light diagonally in front of the spaceship. At that position, a skull covered in giant maggots had just appeared from the darkness. The skull opened its mouth wide and chomped down on the spaceship. It was a master of those bone claws. At the moment of life and death, the Pixies' combined attack had arrived. The purple pillar of light struck the skull and completely turned it incorporeal. The spaceship and the starlight around it went straight through the skull's mouth, heading towards the void of space behind it. It wasn't until they were far away that the skull became solid again. The metal spaceship's cannons opened up one by one, all aiming at the wall above. A series of explosions resounded. Large rocks fell from above, crashing into the giant skull. Another flock of bloodbirds screeched and flew out from behind them. Sushare immediately controlled the spaceship to release an invisible shockwave, causing the flock of bloodbirds to lose their sense of direction and fall into the darkness. Another bone claw appeared in the darkness in front of him. Another giant monster. The Pixies attacked again. The illusory purple pillar of light struck the bone claw and completely turned it incorporeal. The spaceship flew past them, but the expressions of everyone on the ship weren't relaxed at all. "This won't do," Hayes spoke in a low voice. "There are too many monsters. We can't shake them off. Try using teleportation." A guard behind him took out a card, carefully checked it, then reported, "Your Majesty, this place seems to have been sealed off by some sort of power. We can't teleport away." Guyan looked at his subordinate. The subordinate also shook his head dejectedly. Sha Chong was still thinking about the battle just now and said, "Damn it, they're following us like hunting dogs from a hunting standpoint. They're waiting for the main force to arrive." Shan's gaze became sharp, quickly walked up to the window of the ship, and loudly shouted at the Pixies, "There's so many of you. Why are you only using teleportation techniques and not a single proper attack technique?" The sparks stopped briefly, then quickly turned into a sea of flames that manifested the long-bearded old man's figure, speaking in a resounding voice. "Trapped for over 100 million years without any casting materials." Everyone on the ship fell silent. The Pixies were a very powerful race. Within the 900 million world layers, normal people didn't dare to offend them. But inside the secret passage, over 100 million years had used up all of their resources, leaving them with only the ability to use basic spells. No wonder they were always avoiding the monsters. because they couldn't use powerful spells to attack their enemies anymore. What now? There's no way to shake them off. Guyan suddenly said. Investigate. Yes, ruler, his subordinate answered, tossed a cluster of flames into the air, and chanted an incantation. Within the flames, the masked cultivators and the horde of monsters were quickly approaching them. Not too long after, they would catch up to the ship. It's over. We're going to die here, Sha Chong dejectedly said. Hayes Din sighed and didn't say anything. Guyan begrudgingly declared, Even if I die, I'll kill as many as I can. His subordinates loudly responded. Gu Qingshan took a step back and looked at everyone. He saw despair. He then turned to look at Su Sher. Su Sher had already taken off her helmet, but was still fully focused on piloting the ship. She looked at him with a concerned gaze. There is no fear, only concern. Gu Qingshan felt his heart calming down. He took out the Omni Stone, walked up to Su Sher, and whispered, There's something I need to entrust to you. What is it? Su Sher asked. I'll leave it to you, for safekeeping, before I return. You'll be the one to guide me forward, Gu Qingshan said. Hearing their conversation, everyone turned to look at Gu Qingshan. Do you have a way to escape? Sha Chong asked. I don't, Gu Qingshan replied. He raised his voice and told everyone. The pixies gave me an incantation to release this stone in my hand. Now this stone will allow me to release 2 skills. Everyone's eyes dimmed. What good would 2 skills do? The enemy's strength and numbers are more than enough to start a war between multiple worlds. Gu Qingshan continued. Truthfully, the reason I came here was to find a certain weapon. I've seen that weapon's might before. It's truly unstoppable, capable of destroying all things without a doubt. And this time, the reason I came here is to help it obtain its missing parts and become even stronger, but you won't be able to leave right now, Hayes Din said. Indeed, as soon as you leave the ship, you'll be devoured by the monsters before you even reach the ground, Sha Chong added. Gu Qingshan calmly said, Do not give up. Do your best to resist the enemy. Trust me, I will definitely bring that weapon back to save you. Saying so, he suddenly crushed the Omni Stone. In the blink of an eye, the 2 skills that he had chosen were unleashed. Secret Art. Seal body in shift. You enter a state of death, no different from any other dead person in this world. Secret Art. Soul comes, soul goes. After you die, your soul will enter Huang Quan and return. This was Xie Daoling's Huang Quan shuttle technique. M. Chapter 1156. Death is no small matter. However, Gu Qingshan discovered the secret of death. When Gu Qingshan met the Black Flame Venerable for the first time and realized that it was a materialized soul, she began to ponder over a question. The oath of the 4 pillar gods had stripped away the power of living beings, but the Black Flame Venerable was still as powerful as ever, obviously unrestrained. Why was that? Gu Qingshan kept this question in her mind until she met the pixie and opened the Omni Stone. The Fairy of Time appeared and said that the 4 righteous gods had made an oath to strip away the power of all living beings in the secret passage. But souls and all things were an exception. Heavenly King Mara was the weapon spirit, occupying both sides, so it could retain all of its power. The Black Flame Venerable was a soul materialized body, so his power was not taken away. After 100 million years, the pixies had long since died, all turning into soul bodies. They couldn't use any offensive abilities because they didn't have any casting materials, but they had been using other spells that didn't require casting materials. They could even allow Gu Qingshan to master the ability to transform into a cat demon. She could even turn the monsters invisible so that the spaceship could pass through. Everything made sense. Gu Qingshan couldn't help but recall the time when she entered Huang Quan alone and fought there. At that time, he was a soul, but he could still fight. Recalling the past, Gu Qingshan suddenly realized how incredible the spell that her master taught her was. Even if one entered a state of death, the soul would still be able to use the power within the body. It was basically created specifically for soul battles. If the Black Flame Venerable was a soul materialization form, then Master's 2 spells should be at a higher level than a soul materialization form. Because under the effects of these two techniques, souls could wander freely in the human world or enter the Yellow Springs. Combining all the above information, Gu Shan chose the two secret techniques passed down by her master. If I can return, I'll definitely ask Shifu about the Huang Quan technique. At this time, Gu Shan put aside her thoughts and activated the spell. Secret Art, Sealed Corpse, in Shift. Secret Art, Soul Comes, Soul Goes. As soon as the two spells were cast, Gu Shan's body fell to the ground. An out-of-body experience. His soul floated in the air, quietly watching his body fall to the ground. Su Cher exclaimed and rushed forward to pick up the corpse. Everyone was shocked and crowded around him. Haze Din began to summon his guards and search for healing spells. Gu Yin looked around vigilantly, and the flame in his hand was ignited. He seemed to think that an invisible existence had ambushed Gu Shan. Sha Chong was stunned, unable to understand what was going on. No one could see Gu Shan's soul. A line of glowing text appeared in front of Gu Shan's eyes on the war god Ui, frowny face with the power of the secret art. Sealed Corpsine Shift, you have entered a state of death with the power of the secret technique. Soul comes, soul goes, you've turned into a soul body. The power of the Oath of the Four Gods does not restrict souls. Your power that was bound by the oath has been completely released. Gu Shan nodded. Sure enough, it was just as he had expected. As he stood there, the Earth Sword and Chao Yin Sword both appeared from the void of space. The Chao Yin Sword excitedly circled around him. The Earth Sword let out a whistle. You've finally regained the power of a Paragon Realm cultivator, the Earth Sword commented. In the age of old, only fake deities had this level of power. But at the same realm, no fake deity was a match for Gu Shan. Not to mention now that he had reached Solitary Realm, his destructive power on the battlefield was terrifying. Gu Shan wielded both swords and silently thought. As a soul, this technique still has a certain flaw. If the body is destroyed, the soul won't be able to revive at this point. The long-bearded old man suddenly appeared in front of him and glared at him. You haven't even lived for a few 10,000 years. How did you die? Gu Shan smiled. This is the Omni Stone's ability to help me recover. Saying so, he recalled something and took out an inventory bag from his thoughts sea to take out a bounty. This is a bounty offered by the pixies from the outside world. I once tried to open it a bit and felt the mysteries of the pixies' techniques, obtaining quite a bit of benefits, but I still couldn't fully open it. He rubbed the bounty on his nose. Because he was currently a soul, Gu Shan wasn't sure if this would work or not. But this thing needed to be used to wipe his snot before it could be opened. Bam! The bounty gave off a puff of white smoke. It actually opened. A wooden sculpture about the size of an arm appeared in front of Gu Shan and the long-bearded old man. This was the sculpture of a female pixie. Her expression was lively, almost as if she was smiling. Her voice came at the same time. Thank you for completing this bounty. This princess shall reward you with my own sculpture. As soon as she said so, the wooden sculpture stopped moving. Gu Shan regretfully said, Seems like it's not something you can use. The long-bearded old man was already trembling, his mouth wide open, unable to breathe properly. Around him, a large number of fairies instantly appeared, all of them staring at the wooden sculpture, motionless. Are you okay? Gu Shan asked in confusion. Suddenly, the long-bearded old man rushed forward and hugged the wooden sculpture. This is a precious piece of quipcraft wood. Do you understand? The highest level of quipcraft can only be performed with this kind of wood. Quite a few pixies started crying and knelt down in front of the wooden sculpture. Gu Shan noticed that the scepters in these pixies' hands were already rotten beyond repair. For over 100 million years, these scepters had been used without any means to maintain them, so this was their fate. Gu Shan sighed. All right, take it. You'll have to stay with us, protect my body, and wait for my return. Don't worry. We'll fight together until the very end. The long-bearded old man excitedly shouted. He hugged the wooden sculpture and disappeared together with the pixies. It was now that Gu Shan looked down. only to see that everyone was busy gathering around his body. Some people were activating healing spells and waving them at his corpse. Gu Qingshan released her inner sight to look outside the ship. Having lost Su Share's control, the ship had entered autopilot mode. Not only did it slow down, but the attacks had also stopped. Large groups of skeletons were still chasing after it. The giant skeleton approached from afar, following the spaceship with large strides. Seems like my sudden death had dealt quite a heavy blow to the group. Gu Qingshan went silent for a split second. She raised her sword and drew lines of condensed sword phantoms in the air. "Look!" Sha Chang exclaimed. Everyone saw the sword quickly drawing 2 lines of light in the air that manifested into words, "Frowny face, I'll take care of the monsters outside. Hurry and hide. Make sure to wait for my return." The lights slowly condensed into sword phantoms that hovered in the air, exuding sharp sword chi. Din couldn't help but ask, "What exactly is going on?" Su Share's eyes lit up. She had heard Yifei Li and Liao Xing tell her about the Battle of Huangquan, so she understood now. "He's turning into a soul to fight," Su Share loudly shouted at the 2 swords in the air. "Qing Shan, do your best." The 2 swords stopped for a bit, then drew 2 arcs of light in the air to form the shape of a heart. "Huh, this piece of metal and would actually respond to me like that?" Su Share was half surprised, half happy as she thought. She hugged Gu Qingshan's body tightly. In the air, Gu Qingshan's soul muttered to herself, "There, she seems to understand what I meant." The Earth Sword couldn't help but send its voice through inner sight. What exactly did those 2 arcs of light mean? Gu Qingshan replied, "Isn't it obvious?" I told her to pay attention to her surroundings and be on guard against any sudden ambushes, the Earth Sword replied. "I've been fighting with humans for quite a few years now. That doesn't seem to be what you meant." Gu Qingshan shook her head. "You think I drew a heart? Do you think I'm that shallow?" The Earth Sword went silent for a while, then agreed. "Now that I think about it, I was wrong. There's a distance of billions of light years between you and being shallow." The Chao Yin sword let out a low vibrating sound, its meaning unclear. Gu Qingshan didn't want to waste any more words, so she clenched her swords tightly. "Let's go. We're heading out again to fight." He and the 2 swords abruptly disappeared from the ship. At the very next moment, a blinding sword phantom pierced through the darkness, manifesting as a full moon that illuminated this monster-infested world as if it was daytime. Stars rained down. The skeletal birds descended from the sky. The full moon suddenly disappeared. Countless sword phantoms blossomed in the darkness. The color of blood filled the air. Countless monsters that were chasing after them were cut into pieces by the flickering sword phantoms, then diced into fine powder before finally crumbling into mush. As the flowers withered, the swords swelled up, forming a raging torrent behind the ship that violently crashed into the pursuing monsters. The roars of the monsters shook the entire secret passage. As the wind howled, the sound of the giant skeletons was also completely drowned out. Everything returned to silence. The ship flew away. Only Sha Chang's voice faintly resounded through the silence. "Isn't this guy's best at dancing?" The voice slowly faded away until it couldn't be heard anymore. Chapter 11:57. The only person left in the dark void of space was Gu Qingshan. The ship had already left. All the monsters that followed her had been killed. Only he remained standing in midair, silently thinking. "Still wrong," Gu Qingshan muttered. "What's wrong?" the Earth Sword asked. "I remember that before we entered, you said that you could only use Sanctuary. Earth's Choice cannot be used anymore," Gu Qingshan replied. "Yes," the Earth Sword replied. "Aren't you an artifact spirit? You should be like Mara, Heavenly King, unrestrained," Gu Qingshan doubtfully asked. The Earth Sword replied with a resounding voice. "Earth's Choice requires soul points to be used. If I told you that you could use Earth's Choice while you had no soul points, as long as you were willing to give me soul points, what kind of image would you have of me?" Gu Qingshan froze. The Earth Sword replied, "I'm an artifact spirit that cares about my status. Thank you. Gu Qing Shan thought for a bit, then silently told the war god Ui. Look at him. The war god Ui went silent for a moment, then suddenly displayed a screen of glowing text. Gu Qing Shan was shocked and hurriedly looked at it. According to combat records, all obtained soul points are being released. You have killed anti-demon giant elephant. Obtain 100 soul points. You have killed giant elephant summoner. Obtained 300 soul points. You have killed several malicious minions. These minions are too weak compared to you. Soul points will not be calculated. You have killed a human face soaring claw wraith. Obtained 13,691 soul points. Using living being sacrificial dance. Killed the following monsters. Remaining soul points 75613/600, over 75,000 soul points. Who would have thought that during the battle earlier, when I couldn't obtain any soul points, the war god Ui would first store them? Gu Qing Shan was a bit surprised and smiled. Thank you. I shouldn't have said that to you. Just now a line of glowing text appeared on the war god Ui. You admit that you were wrong? Ah, yes, I was wrong, Gu Qing Shan said. A notification popped up on the war god Ui. This time's responsibility for mental damage has been determined, deducting 613 soul points from Guam Qing Shan as compensation for mental damage. Ding dong. The soul points value on the interface changed, and Gu Qing Shan's remaining soul points value became 75,000/600. Gu Qing Shan froze. Moments later, he asked, "Did you leave me such a round number on purpose?" The war god Ui replied, "It's up to you whether you want to use it or not. In fact, you should be searching for Abaddon right now, not standing here and blocking the pursuers." Gu Qing Shan sighed and did not say anything. He stood in the dark void, waiting quietly. Actually, not much time had passed. About 7 or 8 minutes later, the sound of something tearing through the air could be heard from afar. Countless monsters, along with the group of masked cultivators, appeared from the darkness. They immediately noticed a soul floating in the air not far away from them. One of the monsters smirked. "Look, there's a lone fella here, stop." The masked cultivator called out. The group of monsters and the cultivators stopped in the air. The cultivator in the lead was carrying 2 guards as he flew forward a bit. They arrived in front of Gu Qing Shan. "You again," the cultivator in the lead said. He observed the dual, sword-wielding cultivator soul. "I'm sorry, I don't understand what you mean," Gu Qing Shan replied. The cultivator in the lead replied, "Earlier, it was you who discovered my disguise in the secret passage and found the entrance to the secret passage this time." Gu Qing Shan understood. The cultivator continued, "At the entrance of the secret passage, it was you who killed the race of the Wraith Realm and allowed those ants to survive. That's strange. You weren't there at the time. How did you know about this?" Gu Qing Shan doubtfully asked. The cultivator didn't answer and simply thought for a bit, then said, "It seems you're already dead. Then I'll give you a chance." "What chance?" Gu Qing Shan asked. The cultivator replied, "That dance of yours was very strange, but it was incredibly powerful. How about this? Hand it over, and I won't kill you. Kill me? But I'm already dead. You see, I'm a soul." Gu Qing Shan smiled. The cultivator in the lead didn't say anything, but the guard next to him coldly sneered. "Foolish fool. Souls can also die, and it'll be even more painful," another guard scoffed. "Don't bother telling him that. Someone who hasn't seen Huang Quan is nothing more than a summer insect that can't be talked about." The cultivator in the lead shook his head and said, "No need to say anything else. In short, you have to hand over the secret to that dance. Otherwise, I'll show you what hell looks like." "What hell looks like?" Gu Qing Shan fell back in her memories. He suddenly changed the topic and spoke seriously. "If you're willing to learn, I'm willing to perform this dance." He performed the dance, then waited. There was no music. The cultivators all looked at him curiously. Gu Qing Shan spoke to the void of space. "Oi, this is a grand occasion. There are so many people, masked dancers, and even those monsters. Are you not going to dance?" He slightly raised his butt, puffed out his chest, and performed the dance even more. It was quiet all around, but the music didn't play. A gust of wind blew past. The countless monsters, as well as the masked cultivators, were all staring coldly at Gu Qing Shan. Gu Qing Shan awkwardly stopped her dance and cleared her throat. I'm not feeling well today. I'll teach you another day. The cultivator went silent for a bit. Then his voice became fierce. Are you messing with me? Gu Qing Shan frowned and sighed. If I could dance, these people would be so much easier to deal with. Unfortunately, I can't dance. Gu Qing Shan waved her hand dismissively. Don't misunderstand. I never intended to trick you from the very beginning, and I definitely wouldn't mess with you. But it's fine, he moved his body a bit, clenching his swords tightly. In the end, I just want to kill every single one of you here. After a brief moment of silence, laughter broke out in the darkness. The mocking laughter of the monsters resounded throughout the darkness. He's alone. He wants to kill us all. Aha! He wants to kill us all. He really doesn't know how to write death. What a pitiful bastard. He must have gone mad. It's fine, I'll just eat his soul. While the monsters were talking, they suddenly attacked. Hundreds of spells flew past the cultivator leader and headed straight for Gu Qing Shan. Her sword moved. Divine skill, Rahu's eclipse of sun and moon first strike, sword of extinguishing flames, parting fire. Gu Qing Shan raised the earth sword and pointed it forward. Countless sword phantoms erupted from his sword, giving off billions of tiny noises. These hair-thin sword phantoms didn't attack the enemy, but clashed with each other millions of times in the void of space. Boom! The world turned into a sea of flames. Gu Qing Shan swung her sword from afar. In an instant, all the attacks the monsters unleashed were extinguished by the flames. The burning flame slash was known as Parting Flame, the first strike of a divine skill. The monsters howled and screamed inside the flames, but no matter what spells they unleashed, they couldn't attack Gu Qing Shan at all. The cultivator leader was no longer as calm as before. He shouted, "Not good. This level of swordsmanship must be a divine skill of the Azura realm. Hurry, hurry, hurry. We have to stop him." The cultivators behind him all flew forward and formed their hand seals. The cultivator leader gritted his teeth. Divine skills, we also have them. Their hands quickly formed their hand seals. The entire combination divine skill was completed in the blink of an eye. "Sir, it's done," one of the cultivators said. "Let me." The cultivator leader clenched his fists, about to activate the divine skill. But he stopped. "Sir," the cultivators behind him urged him. The cultivator leader was sweating profusely, but he still didn't activate the divine skill. His hands weren't clenched together. In fact, there was only half a finger's distance between his hands. As long as he closed this half finger's distance, the combination divine skill would be complete. Unfortunately, no matter how much he urged his body, spirit energy, willpower, and inner sight, he couldn't complete the final step of the divine skill. A layer of white frost started to spread from his hand to his entire body. In the air, Gu Qing Shan was putting the Chao Yin sword away. The second strike of the divine skill, Frost Edge, extinguishing frost sword,